London Day by Day by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org. The smoke in vaster volumes rolls. The fever fiend takes larger tolls, and sin a fiercer grip of souls. In London day by day, still Buggins builds on swampy site, and Eiffel houses block the light, and make a town of dreadful night, of London day by day. In fashion's long and busy street, the outcast foreign harlots meet, while Robert smiles upon his beat. In London day by day, still modest maidens' cheeks are stung with foulest words from wanton's tongue, and oaths yelled out with leathern lung. In London day by day, wealth riots in a mad excess, while thousands, poor and penniless, starve in the mighty wilderness of London day by day. Wrong proudly rears its wicked head, while right's sad eyes with tears are red, and sluggard justice lies abed. In London day by day, the lyre triumphs, and the knave rides buoyant on the rolling wave, and liberty makes many a slave. In London day by day, yet hope and trust and faith and love, and God's fair dowers from above, still find a branch like Noah's dove. In London day by day, and onward still, through slow the pace, press pilgrims of our grand old race, who seek the right with firm set face, and shed truth's light by God's good grace, o'er London day by day. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
For Air and Hair by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Lawley. I said to my sweet in the morning, we must start on our journey at 10. She was up in her bedroom adorning. She'd been there a goodish time then, and she answered me tenderly, "Poppet," as she came to the top of the stair. "If you see a cab pass you can stop it, for I've only to finish my hair." It was 10 by the clock of St. Stephen's, as I sat and looked glum in the hall, and I offered to wager her evens. She would never be ready at all. I counted the half and the quarters. At 11 I ventured to swear. Then she answered, like one of Eve's daughters, "All right, dear, I must do my hair." I waited till daylight was waning. I waited till darkness began, upbraiding myself for complaining, like a selfish and bad-tempered man. But when midnight ran out from the steeple, I ventured to whisper a prayer, and she answered, "I hate surely people. You must let me finish my hair." I paid for the cab and dismissed it. I took off my coat and my hat. I held her fair hand and I kissed it, and I curled myself up on the mat. And when I awoke on the morrow, I cried, "Oh, where art thou, my fair?" And she answered, "Oh, run out and borrow a hairpin or two for my hair. The summers have faded to winters, the winters have melted to springs. My patient has shivered to splinters, and still as she puts on her things, my sweet, though I'm weary of waiting, and groan in my bitter despair, contents herself simply by stating she's just got to finish her hair. If she's here when the world's at its finish, and lists to the last crack of doom, she will watch our poor planet diminish from the window upstairs in her room. And when the last trumpet is blowing, and the angel says, "Hurry up there," she will answer, "All right, sir, I'm going, but you must let me finish my hair."
End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Domestic Tragedy by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org. A Domestic Tragedy. She was a housemaid, tall and slim, a well-conducted, modest girl. Her dress was always neat and trim. She never sported fringe or curl. She did her work and kept her mind intent upon her household cares. One fault alone there was to find: she left her dustpan on the stairs. She loved her mistress very much. She held her master in respect. Her grief the hardest heart would touch when they'd occasion to correct. But still, in spite of all they said, in spite of scolding and of prayers, ah me, to what at last it led! She left her dustpan on the stairs. One morn, while breakfasting below, and glancing at the Morning Post, she heard a wild and sudden "oh!" that made her drop her buttered toast. She heard a heavy fall, and groans. The master, taken unawares, had slipped and broken several bones. She left the dustpan on the stairs. They sent for doctors by the score. They fetched in haste Sir Andrew Clark. But master's sufferings soon were o'er. That night he sat in Charon's bark. Now in a cell at Colney Hatch, a gibbering housemaid groans and glares, and tries with trembling hands to snatch a ghostly dustpan from the stairs. Moral. Ye housemaids who this tale may read, remember, backs are hard to mend, and injured nose freely bleed, and falls may cause untimely end. Your masters are but mortal men, a neck once broken naught repairs. Oh, think of this, ye housemaids, when you leave the dustpans on the stairs. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Pick-Me-Up by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Chad Horner. The Pick-Me-Up, written after one bottle. In the marketplace or forum, if you're dull, my cockalorum need never the censor more'em, but just brew yourself a jorum in a beaker or a cup of this stimulating liquor, which, when life begins to flicker, and your soul grows slowly sicker, and you feel a bucket kicker, is a patent pick-me-up. It was near the Yorkshire Stingo that, in modern London lingo, with a face like a flamingo, said a friend of mine, "By Jingo, what a wretched wreck you are." I replied, "I'm melancholic, and my pains are diabolic. I who once was frisk and frolic, now am glum and vitriolic. Every nerve is on the jar." Then a smile that was sardonic beamed about his brow Byronic, and he said, "This is Masonic, but I think you want a tonic. Try the famous something wine." And he further said with unction that I need have no compunction in obeying his injunction. 'Twould renew each vital function, and just suit a case like mine. I have drunk, and am a giant, quite refreshed and grown defiant. All my limbs are free and pliant, and now neither May nor Byron can supply a match to me. Now my pen again grows graphic, and my verse is strictly sapphic, and my tricycle in traffic I can ride with smile seraphic, from all nervous tremors free. I can laugh at Punch and Judy, and enjoy a book from Moody. I am spick and span and duty, and I freely spend my scuddy, and I feel that I could fly. I've a bearing that is regal, and all my acts are strictly legal, and I'll wager that an eagle, though he'd taken Mother Seagull, couldn't show as clear an eye. So in marketplace or forum, if you're dull, my cockalorum, never heed the censor morum, but just brew yourself a jorum in a beaker or a cup of this stimulating liquor, which when life begins to flicker, and your soul grows slowly sicker, and you feel a bucket kicker, is a patent pick-me-up. End the poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Cor Meum by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. O heart, my heart that faintly flutters and sinks within my coward breast, at every sound a demon utters, the demon of a wild unrest. What poison is it in you lurking that taints the rich red stream of life, and leaves your trembling owner shirking the storm and stress of daily strife? The skies are black as night's dark daughters, the havens far, and fierce the sea. Ill-omened birds above the waters fly low and shriek with evil glee. O sinking heart, to hope a traitor, if through the storms the peace we prize bid me sail on, the risk is greater for him who here at anchor lies. Beat heart again with brave endeavor, beat heart with faith in God's right hand, stretched out to those who ask it ever to lead them to the promised land. Mine eyes to earth no more inclining, I watch the storm that clears the sky. Who'd see the sun in splendor shining, must boldly fix his gaze on high. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Ichabod by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. Write it up with faltering fingers, write it with a blush of shame, since no ray of glory lingers mid the temples of our fame, or a Christian church blaspheming which has dragged the name of God through the mire of party scheming. Write the legend Ichabod. Write it where our peers assemble, dullards decked in solemn state, though their sires made Europe tremble in the days when we were great. Peers today the land encumber, lazy lords no spur can prod, or the house where now they slumber. Write the legend Ichabod. Shrined in history's grandest pages are the deeds of those who bent tyrant kings and kingly rages to the will of Parliament. Now but placemen, boors, and traitors tread the halls that Hampden trod, or the house of idle praters. Write the legend Ichabod. Once old England's pride and glory was that all her sons were free. Ah, today how changed the story! Where is now our liberty? Cranks and fattists forge our fetters. Every day we feel the rod. Grandmamma, in sampler letters, works o'er England Ichabod. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Derby Ditty by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org. Mud in my eyes and mud on my cheek, my hat that drips and my boots that leak, and a voice so hoarse that I scarce can speak. That's how I went to the Derby. A fight with a man at the station gate, apoplexy through being late, a score in a carriage that seated 8. That's how I went to the Derby. Never a cab for love or oof, the dye running out of my waterproof. Through shock and water I pad the hoof. That's how I got to the Derby. Smashed and crushed in a crowded pen, bruised and battered by bustling men, a lamb in a roaring lion's den. That's how I saw the Derby. The favorites beat, the millions cry. The next umbrella extracts my eye. and I've laid 2,000 to 1 with Fry. That's how I liked the Derby. I've lost my temper, I've lost my tin. Where is my watch, my chain, my pin? And my boots are letting the water in. That's how I left the Derby. A couple of doctors by my bed, a block of ice on my burning head, and somehow I wish that I was dead. That's what came of the Derby. The brokers in on a bill of sale, pills and potions of no avail, a jerry-built tomb with a rusty rail. That's what came of the Derby. R.I.P. on a soot-grimed stone, and under my name these words alone. The biggest juggins that ever was known has gone where's there no more Derby. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Shall We Remember by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org. Ah, love, my love, as hand in hand, this glorious autumn weather, we stroll along the golden strand, and watch the ships together. We murmur vows we mean to keep, but by next year's September, how many made beside the deep shall we remember? Old love is dead, new love awakes, and hearts are playthings ever. Though change may mar, 'tis change that makes. Time every link can sever. Though dull love's fire to glowing gold, we fan the dying ember, yet in new love, the love of old, shall we remember. The race of life is to the strong. The pace grows fast and faster. The leader takes the field along and brings the weak disaster. The prize is won, yet what is fame? A rushlight in November. In 12 short months, the victor's name shall we remember. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Paradise and the Sinner by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Charles Conover. Paradise and the Sinner. One morn a sinner at the gate of Eden stood disconsolate, and as he pondered on the things in life he'd done, his wild oat sowings, he felt the pang that conscience brings, and both his cheeks with shame were glowing. He thought of all the vows he'd broken, he thought of falsehoods lightly told, of all the hasty words he'd spoken, and all the tricks he'd played for gold. "Ah me," he cried, "I own my sin, so pity, angel, let me in." The angel heard the sinner's tale, he blushed not, neither turned he pale, but, "Think you then," in wrath he cried, "for crimes like these to pass inside? Your life's not been so badly spent, you must do something worse by far. Come back with something to repent, and then I'll raise the crystal bar." The sinner he flew from the spot sublime away to the earth below. I wonder, he thought, what kind of crime is reckoned the worst in Hout. He picked a pocket and stole a purse. He plotted against the crown. He changed 2 babies put out to nurse, and he left a dog to drown. Good, said the angel as he heard a list of the sinner's sins, but this is only about 1/3 of the crime that entrance wins. Your record, I trow, must be blacker far before I can raise the crystal bar. The sinner flew back to the earth once more, and he steeped his hands in his brother's gore. He poisoned his wife by slow degrees, and hanged his twins on a couple of trees, and then with a broken and rusty saw he cut off the head of his mother-in-law, and he cried as a shuddering world turned sick, "If the chaplain's right, I have done the trick." Once more he stood before the gate, and told his tale and asked his fate. The angel smiled, said, "Right you are," and swiftly raised the crystal bar. But oh, when the sinner was once inside, "There is some mistake," he in terror cried, as down in the bottomless pit he fell, and found he had knocked at the gate of hell. "It was your mistake," the angel said, "to think that because your hands were red, you could pass at once to the realms above, the beautiful realms of peace and love. The clerical gents may tell you so, but this is the place to which murderers go." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Income Tax by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org. O Goshen, hear us groan, relieve our burdened backs. We weep and wail and moan, reduce the income tax. It is a wicked plan, and decency it lacks. It makes a Christian man say, "Hang the income tax." Poor Job, he had to bear some very nasty smacks, but nothing to compare with this infernal tax. Not all his pains and aches could put him in a wax, but he'd have shouted "Snakes!" if asked for income tax. Oh, take the curse away, the cruel curse that racks. Why should free Britons pay the most un-British tax? For years has raged the fight, be yours the cry of Pax, and Britain's wrongs to right, remove the income tax. On earth that deed shall dwell till all creation cracks, and fame's last trumpet tell how Goshen killed the tax. Do this, and you will forge a deathless battle-axe for England's new St. George, who slew the income tax. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Nonsense by John R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org. Nonsense. The Strand was in a dreadful state, and so was Mary Ann. They'd gone and raised the postal rate, twist her hen her young man. She might have sent by parcels post her lover's Christmas card, but gales were raging round the coast, and it was freezing hard. What was a poor distracted maid to do in such a case, when only half the odds were laid an hour before the race? She had a right to see the rules according to the law, but as the staff were mostly fools, the time was all she saw. So losing heart, she gave a groan, and taking off her socks, she dropped them, they were not her own, inside the pillar box. Her socks, as you may shrewdly guess, were stockings, truth to tell, for as to-day young ladies dress, socks would not look so well. She left her boots to mark the place, and went to Drury Lane, but there was that in Gus's face which filled her heart with pain. He would not pass her to the pit. She said, "I'm on the press." She thought he would have had a fit, and burst his evening dress. "If you are on the press," he cried, "you ought to wear your shoes, but as there's room for one inside, I cannot well refuse." He put her in a private box, which hid her to the knees, and sent for Elias for some frocks, and whispered, "Choose from these." She chose a page's trunks and hose, a fairy skirt of gauze, and while she dressed Augustus rose and left amid applause. Then back she went, a fairy queen, into the GPO. She passed the rows of clerks between, and all were bowing low. They weighed her card with smirk and smile, the stamps with care imposed. The postage was £1 a mile, because the ends were closed. But in her fairy garment she did look so sweet a gal. Oh, HMS was put by the Postmaster General. And ere her card her lover unclosed, another knot was tied. The PMG himself proposed, and now she is his bride. Moral: if information you would ask when PO clerks are pressed, you'll find it aid you in your task if you go nicely dressed. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Le Mardi Gras by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Campbell Schelp. The feast of folly is spread. Let us eat and drink and be merry, while the fountains are running red with the juice of the glorious berry. Let us carry the forts of joy with a series of madcap dashes, ere the feast of flesh, my boy, gives way to the fast of ashes. We have but a breath of life, a whiff of the world's wide pleasure, a year of its strain and strife, for a day of its dancing measure. So hey for the fatted calf, while the carnival music crashes. At the feast of flesh we'll laugh, ere we weep at the fast of ashes. O sage with the grim grey face, with our quips is there cause to quarrel? We know ere we run our race, we shall master the Mardi's moral. We shall be as the monks who scourge their skins with 100 lashes. Youth's feast of the flesh we must purge with our manhood's fast of ashes. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Two Sundays by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Charles Conover. 2 Sundays. The bigot with his narrow mind can ill in every pleasure find. He makes his God a god of gloom, the pulsing world a living tomb. A curse in every blessing sees, and thinking heaven to appease, he cuts, religion is his knife, the blossom from the tree of life. From fogs that give that bigot birth, far off in many a land of mirth, hearts full of faith in God above look on him as a God of love, a God who bids his children play and smiles to see his loved ones gay, as earthly fathers smile to see their children sing and dance with glee. O British Sabbath bigot bred, our youth's despair, our childhood's dread. God does not scowl in solemn state behind a gloomy prison gate. He smiles enthroned in sunny skies, where only joyous songs arise. To make God's day, then, 'twere as well seem more like heaven and less like hell. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Mails Aboard by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Campbell Schelp. The captain of the Cooke took his glasses from the starboard hook. He gazed across the raging main, then put his glasses back again. The cuckoo's mate remarked, "I guess you saw a signal of distress?" "I did, but it must be ignored. You see, we've got the mails aboard." This was the captain's curt reply. The first mate heard it with a sigh. But all the cuckoo's captain said was steady then, full steam ahead. He crossed the sinking vessel's bows as close as seamanship allows. "Can't stop," he through his trumpet roared, "because I have the mails aboard." The passengers and all the crew replied, "Oh, please to save us, do," and plunging in the raging sea, declined the captain's RIP. They followed in the cuckoo's wake, till swimming made their stomachs ache. Their lot the captain much deplored, but waved them off with "mails aboard." The storm to fiercest tempest grew, but straight ahead the cuckoo flew, till once again the captain took his glasses from the starboard hook. "Hullo!" he cried, "if I am not mistaken, there's the royal yacht. A hidden rock her side has bored. She signals, 'Answer, mails aboard.'" The yacht replied with haughty mien, "Stop, by the order of the Queen," who, braving equinoctial gales, now in the sinking vessel sails. "Alas!" the cuckoo's captain cried, "to save my queen would be my pride." Here he saluted with his sword, "But tell her I've the mails aboard." "Ha!" cried the queen, "for this I will cut off his head on Tower Hill. The knave shall see the house of Guelph, respected still can make itself." She sent a man to every gun, and, just to stop the captain's fun, into his ship a broadside poured, although he had the mails aboard. The cuckoo's captain cried, "The deuce!" and straight ran up a flag of truce. And then he sent a boat to save his sovereign from a watery grave. The queen stepped nimbly on the deck, and left the royal yacht a wreck. But flung, though mercy he implored, the cuckoo's captain overboard. When he recovered from the shock, and lay upon a lonely rock, and their ships' captains as they pass survey him sternly through the glass, and by Victoria's orders scoff at all his cries of "Take me off," and say, "By us your fate's deplored, but we can't stop, we've mails aboard." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
At the Photographers by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Leknarf. They coaxed me up 100 stairs. They lured me to their den. For me they laid their artful snares, those photographing men. They dragged me to a room of glass beneath a blazing sun. I thought I should have died. Alas! I'm nearly 14 stone. They saw their victim pant and blow. They heard him cry, "I melt!" But ne'er a one for all my woe one grain of pity felt. They seized my head and screwed it round and fixed it in a vice, and simpered when they had me bound, "That pose is very nice. Look up, and wear a smile. Look pleasant if you please. You must keep still a while, just straighten up your knees." 'Tis thus they jeer and jibe at me, as, faint and hot, I try an inch before my nose to see, with sunstroke in my eye. I think of all the bitter wrongs my later life has known. I writhe beneath fate's cruel thongs. I knit my brow and groan. And still with many a smile and smirk, the artist trips about, and gives my chin a little jerk, and sticks my elbows out. Ye gods, am I a grinning ape to pose and posture thus? Am I a man in human shape, or turkey that they truss? My head is free. With fiendish mirth I raise a vengeful hand, and dash the camera to earth, and fell the iron stand. I take the artist by the throat, and pin him to the wall, and jerk his chin, and tear his coat, and hold his head in thrall. I bid the trembling victim smile. I cry, be gay and laugh, and in the very latest style, I'll take your photograph. I twisted till I broke his neck. I baked him in the sun. I left the room an awful wreck, and then the deed was done. They held an inquest on the bits, ye photographing crew. Before you the writer sits. Just read that inquest through. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
In Gay Japan by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Sir Edwin Arnold. Mr. Lawson, if you please, just a little line to say, I'm a taking of my ease in a Japanesey way. Here I write by lands and seas for your London day by day, 'neath the blossom-laden trees of Japan, the glad and gay. Here I watch the pretty shes as they don their night array, and they ask me to their teas, and they sing to me and play. 'Tis mid pleasures such as these that I hope you'll let me stay. 'Tis a climate that agrees with your faithful Edwin A. Now no more I have to seize editorial pen to flay. Home rule, freaks of Mr. G's, or to keep the rads at bay. Mona's marriage, Lubbock's bees, Mr. Stanley, Totty Fay, water rates and school board fees, on my mind no longer prey. Glad Japan my spirit frees from its tenement of clay, and my notebook on my knees, with the muses I can stray. So, dear Lawson, if you please, I will stop here if I may, sending over lands and seas, from Japan, the glad and gay. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Balaclava Heroes by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Charles Conover. The Balaclava Heroes. Open the workhouse doors today to the men who fought in that fearful fray. Weary and worn and scant of breath are the men who rode through the valley of death, but clad in the pauper's garb of shame, they are getting the meed of their deathless fame. These are the heroes our poets sang when over the world their story rang. These are the heroes gnarled and bent, with the tale of whose deeds the skies were rent. These are the heroes whose fame's writ large on the glorious page of that deathless charge. Open the workhouse doors today to the penniless heroes old and gray. In each wrinkled face is a soldier's pride. They have won the guerdon so long denied, and we honor their deeds with, what do you think? A benefit at the skating rink. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Child's Idea by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. Lightly holding her mother's hand, a little girl tripped o'er her father's land. Squire of all acres he, as far as the little one's eyes could see. And his wife and his daughter, his baby May, were seeing the folks this Christmas Day. 6 years old was the baby girl, and her brain was all in a dreamy whirl, with the puddings and pies and Christmas trees, and the bells and carols, and if you please, the night before had St. Nicholas been with the loveliest dolly that ever was seen. "How good of the saint, mamma, to leave such beautiful things upon Christmas Eve!" she had cried, as against her baby breast she hushed her dear little doll to rest. And then the wonders of Christmas Day had almost taken her breath away. And now through the village she gaily trips, as the greeting comes from a score of lips. A Merry Christmas and a bright New Year! And the air is heavy with Christmas cheer. Goose and pudding and beef galore, and the fires glow bright through each open door. There's a happy smile upon every face. The village is quite a fairy place. And in every cottage at which they call, the green and holly are on the wall. And all the family gathered there are seated around the Christmas fare. "How happy they are," says baby May, as she looks at the feast and the feasters gay. And then there comes to her childish mind a scene or two of a different kind, of weeping women and frowning men, and nobody seems so happy then. She had grasped the fact in her childish way that the poor had troubles and rents to pay, that children ailed, and that some men's wives were nearly worried out of their lives. She had heard the gossip, as children do, and today it came back to her mind anew. She thought of the village of then and now, and there came a cloud on her baby brow. She knew there was sorrow where now was mirth, and she whispered, "Mamma, when He made the earth, what a pity it was that God did not say, 'Let it always be Christmas Day.'" End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Sanitation at Sea by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Stephen Nuzzo. I have sailed o'er the ocean to spots far away. I've also done Margate and back in the day. I have spent the long nights upon deck in a storm, and stood by the funnel to keep myself warm. And when I've been poorly as poorly can be, I have sighed for some slight sanitation at sea. I have been in the cabin where sufferers lay, in an atmosphere fitted a nigger to slay. I have slept in a bunk where the air was so foul that I woke in the morn with an agonized howl. And I've staggered upstairs crying, "Oh, dearie me, why will they ignore sanitation at sea?" By the smell of the engine, the dirt on the deck, by the stairs you descend at the risk of your neck, by the cabin whose odor is stuffy and stale, by the dirty old tub which is known as the mail, by the horrors from which scarce a vessel is free, we'd welcome the least sanitation at sea. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Gignola by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Wen Cure. I pay 2 sous and take my chair among the little girls and boys. The nurses turn their heads and stare, for puppet shows are children's joys. And yet, though time has hit me hard, and life I'm given to revile, from every joy I'm not debarred, for Gignola still can make me smile. Dear Gignola of my golden youth, how oft in these Elysian fields I've listened to his words of truth, and watched the baton that he wields. And still in autumn's pleasant glow a happy hour away I while, and with the babies see the show, for Gignola still can make me smile. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The English Summer by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Campbell Schelp. On Monday the weather was fine and bright, 3 fine days and a thunderstorm. On Tuesday the floods had reached their height, and a hurricane blew on Wednesday night, and the land was a swamp and a dismal sight, 3 fine days and a thunderstorm. On Thursday the dogs all panting lay, 3 fine days and a thunderstorm, and sunstroke settled 2 boys at play. On Friday the winter had come to stay, 3 fine days and a thunderstorm. On Saturday snow was a good foot high, 3 fine days and a thunderstorm. On Sunday there fell from the jet-black sky a deluge that covered the mountains high, and today in a tropical sun we fry, 3 fine days and a thunderstorm. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. A Perfect Paradise by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Campbell Schelp. Vide Pelican. Affidavits. The quiet of the woodland way, bird broken is by night and day, but ne'er a songbird trills its lay in Gerrard Street, Soho. No breeze here bears the Babel roar, life's ocean, tideless evermore, lies dead upon the silent shore of Gerrard Street, Soho. The hermit seeking holy calm may soothe his soul with Gilead balm beneath the desert's one green palm in Gerrard Street, Soho. But 'twas, oh, 'twas not always thus, men flying from life's fume and fuss, in herb found a peaceful rus in Gerrard Street, Soho. There was a time when shout and shriek, and song and oath and drunken freak made matters lively all the week in Gerrard Street, Soho. Then too, alas, the Sabbath eve heard sounds to make the pious grieve, and quiet tenants thought they'd leave in Gerrard Street, Soho. When came the change from noise to peace? When did the clattering hansom cease? When rose the value of a lease in Gerrard Street, Soho? When came that sense of perfect rest which makes the region doubly blessed? 'Twas when, as members' oaths attest, the pelicans first built their nest in Gerrard Street, Soho. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. That Breeze by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Campbell Schelp. The poets who write in the magazines have pitched their tents amid sylvan scenes, treading with joy in their lazy lay the primrose path of the woodland way. They always stop on the road to sing of the balmy breeze of awakening spring. I know that breeze of the lilting line. That breeze is a very old friend of mine. That it takes bards in need cause no surprise, for at throwing dust into people's eyes, facile princeps and also king, is the balmy breeze of awakening spring. It's the poet that's balmy, and not the breeze, when he sings in praise of our English bys, the wind that blows 'neath the cold grey sky, that stabs the chest and inflames the eye. It is death that hovers with sable wing on the balmy breeze of awakening spring. I'd sing the song that this breeze deserves, but alas, I've liver and also nerves. Sciatica racks me day and night, and I haven't a bronchial tube that's right, and the fiend that all these woes doth bring is the balmy breeze of awakening spring. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Ballad of Old Time Fogs by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Lawley. The sky above my head is fair, not dark as once it used to be, and joy and life are in the air, and green is every budding tree that windswept makes its buff to me. And all the world is glad and gay, which makes me cry when this I see. Where are the fogs of yesterday? My heart is light and void of care, though this year's months are yet but 3. I miss the midday gas lamps' glare. I meet the folks who used to flee to southern France and Italy. In London now they gladly stay, in London spend their pounds, shillings, pence. Where are the fogs of yesterday? One shirt till eve I now can wear, which once was quite a rarity, and even folks in Bedford Square, and erstwhile blackest Bloomsbury, can from their windows gaze with glee, and nod to friends across the way. And Auguste says to Stephen G., where are the fogs of yesterday? Prince, since of them at last we're free, and London 'scapes their cruel sway, why need we care a single D? Where are the fogs of yesterday? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Under the Clock by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. An Actor's Song. For the remainder of cast, see Under the Clock, Theatrical Advertisement. Under the clock, with the rank and file, that's where you have to look for me. That is the end of the century style. Vide the ads in the great DT. Well, I suppose we can't all be starred, so the special ads for the finer flock and the common sheep, though it's rather hard, are huddled together beneath the clock. I do my best in my humble way when I'm cast for a part that is known as small, for the minor parts in a high-class play may help in its making, after all. and so when I'm placed below the salt, it gives my pride just a passing shock, and I own some day I should like to vault up to the stars from beneath the clock. Actor's vanity, yes, you're right, though I'd rather you called it artist's pride. It's the battle of life in the mimic fight on the boards, where so many have fought and died. On the world's great stage, where they're players all, and they feel the pains that we only mock. To a favored few must the star ads fall, the rest are only beneath the clock. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Girl of 47 by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Charles Conover. The Girl of 47. Fond lover, when you come to woo, and whisper nothing's tender, and try to span, as lovers do, a waist that once was slender. Be not upset if curt rebuff your amorous joy should leaven. That sort of thing is apt to huff the girl of 47. That girl who's up to every game knows more than you can teach her. With Cupid's bow it's vain to aim, his arrows rarely reach her. The only words to touch her heart are Coots and Barclay Bevan. Gold-tipped must be the blind god's dart for girls of 47. Don't think by gazing in her eyes with simulated rapture. Don't think by sentimental sighs her seasoned heart to capture. Just show your banker's book, my son, and if the will of heaven has blessed your balance, you have won the girl of 47. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Conventional Malgre Lui by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Emma Baker. Convention is a thing I hate, convention is a thing I scorn, and yet, alas, I grieve to state, I was conventionally born. My father and my mother were, a curse beyond convention's head, two sweethearts, youth and maiden they were conventionally wed. Then came my vaccination and, convention though I cannot brook, I'm given now to understand, it quite conventionally took. I cut my teeth, convention, bah! A tear stood in my baby eye. Oh, why did I not learn from ma that teething babies always cry? I was an infant, then a child, and then a boy, and then a youth. Ah, even now it makes me wild, but I must tell the bitter truth. And then I came to man's estate. You see that I no single jot did from convention deviate, and yet I think convention rot. I fell in love, ah, he who sits in judgment on the modern stage, and tears the common play to bits, will understand my frenzied rage. I fell in love, convention slave, to dull convention bowed the knee, and in return the maiden gave her love conventional to me. And now I have some girls and boys who grow and play and go to school. Conventional are all my joys, I'm just like any other fool. I give off Ibsen to my wife, and quote the notes of W.A., but still I lead a common life. Convention won't be kept at bay. The end, of course, will come at last. Oh, may I, like Elijah, rise in something safe upon the blast, and living pass beyond the skies. When quitting earth I'd keep my breath, I hope sincerely that I shall. I loathe the bare idea of death. It is so damned conventional. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Home, Sweet Home. A Winter's Tale by John R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org. Home, Sweet Home. Through every chink there rose the blast. My stock of calls is falling fast. I have a call that's come to last. I'm booked until the blizzard's past for a home, sweet home. The fog has filled the house with gloom. The blacks lie thick in every room. Dim through the mist the gas jets loom, and not unlike a living tomb is home, sweet home. To devil's blue I fall a prey, and sit and think of a livelong day of happier times when I was gay in winter Edens far away from home, sweet home. A prisoner I in climes accursed, where fog and frost are at their worst. Hullo, what's that? The pipes have burst. A plumber, quick, but save me first from home, sweet home. Fling wide the door and bring a light. Hi, cabman, 'tis an awful night. Put down the glass and I'll sit tight, but drive me from the dreadful sight of home, sweet home. Poor horse, oh spare the lash. His quivering carcass ceased to thrash. He's down, the cab has come to smash. The snow falls fast, I'll make a dash for home, sweet home. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
In Portland Place by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Lawley. The world and wife are out of town. The blast sweeps down the empty street. The bobby in a sturdy brown thinks of the sea upon his beat. The cab horse dozes on the rank. The empty buses cease to race. The hungry cat roams, lean and lank. The blinds are down in Portland Place. The birds still sing in Regent's Park. The ducks emit their bronchial quack. But all day long from dawn to dark, the crossing sweeper's trade is slack. The Langham porter's wandering eye encounters near a human face. No smoke goes upward to the sky. The blinds are down in Portland Place. The thoroughfare is broad and wide. The vestry keeps the roadway clean, and I can walk on either side, or 'gainst each separate lamp-post lean. I'm king of all that I survey, as sad as Selkirk's in my case. Oh, soon to save my reason may. The blinds go up in Portland Place. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Shirt Buttons by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Chad Horner from Ballyclare, in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the northeast of the island of Ireland. Read by Chad Horner. The Shirt Buttons after Swinburne. Off at the neck and wristband, off and laid on the bed, and she of the sweet white kissed band is the one whom I chose to wed. Off the 2 pearl white buttons, and yet it is laid out there to return as it were to our muttons the shirt I am going to wear. I list to the bell's sweet chiming in the still of the Sabbath morn, and I ask myself in rhyming why a buttonless shirt is worn. Shall I put myself in a passion and curse the unwifely act? Or, which isn't a poet's fashion, behave with a little tact? Shall I show her the shirt and scold her, my scarcely a month wed wife, or wait till our union's older for the frown and the wordy strife? Ah, soul of my soul, my darling, no buttonless shirt shall rise to set the old Adam snarling at his Eve in their paradise. Are we twain made one to wrangle, that the wifely ways unlearnt, that a shirt has gone wrong in the mangle, or a handkerchief's badly burnt? No, never shall wrath be blighting the beautiful bliss that buds, and I'll fasten your love requiting my buttonless shirt with studs. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Londoner to His Love by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Emma Charlotte. Song and Dance. N.B. This American song and dance can only be performed on the production of a certificate of lunacy signed by 3 members of the London County Council. Oh, come, my love, where the fog lies thick, down in the shadow where the microbes grow. We shall catch na nonna if we're only quick, down in the shadow where the microbes grow. For our bower is built on London clay, where the grey mist hangs from the dawn of day, and the gay young germs of neuralgia play, down in the shadow where the microbes grow. Oh, come, my love, where the sun ne'er smirks, down in the shadow where the microbes grow, to the wild wet waste where consumption lurks, down in the shadow where the microbes grow, where the cough makes music and the bronchial wheeze replies to the echo of the sniff and sneeze, and asthma flirts with the cutthroat breeze, down in the shadow where the microbes grow. Oh, come, my love, and abide with me, down in the shadow where the microbes grow, where the weathercock always points NE, down in the shadow where the microbes grow, where the damp drips dank down the dismal wall, and the fungi flourish in the mildewed hall, and the undertaker is the lord of all, down in the shadow where the microbes grow. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Eiffel Bonnet by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Wen Cure. Behind an Eiffel bonnet I sat one matinee, and oh, the feathers on it completely hid the play, because that Eiffel bonnet kept bobbing in my way. That awful Eiffel bonnet, it blotted out the scene and all the people in it, just like a giant screen. It was the sort of bonnet you couldn't see between. The wearer of that bonnet between 2 friends she sat, and swayed, and hence the sonnet, now this way and now that, and bent her head in a bonnet with either side to chat. To left she moved her bonnet, I bent my head to right at the stage to look upon it. But ere I had a sight, back came that Eiffel bonnet and blotted out the light. O awful Eiffel bonnet that towers to the sky, if ladies still will don it, 'twill happen by and by. Down with that Eiffel bonnet, all playgoers will cry. To see a swinging bonnet we don't go to the play, 'tis not to gaze upon it our 10 and 6 we pay, so damn the Eiffel bonnet that damns the matinee. End of poem. This poem is in the public domain. To a Fair Musician by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Wen Cure. O lady next door, could your glance on me fall, there are times when my lot you would pity, and shut the piano that stands by the wall, and spare me your favorite ditty. That music hath charms, I'm the last to deny, but music from 8 to 11 is apt the weak nerves of a poet to try, and to hasten his journey to heaven. In vain in my study on work I've in hand I endeavor to fix my attention. That moment you sit yourself down to your grand, and I use a nice word I won't mention. O lady, I know you are gentle and fair, and I grant that you play very nicely. But if you are anxious my reason to spare, don't start, ma'am, at 8. so precisely? I wait for that moment, each nerve on the strain. I tremble with wild agitation. 1,000 sharp needles seem prickling my brain, and I'm bathed in a cold perspiration. For I know you'll commence at the last stroke of 8 to perform, all the more so that you know, from Dorothy, Doris, and Faust up to date, from Mendelssohn, Mozart, and Gounod. O lady next door, could your glance but once fall on the eye in which madness is lurking, you would move your piano away from the wall, and you'd play when the bard wasn't working. End of poem. This poem is in the public domain.
A Word for the Police by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Emma Charlotte. The soldiers of our city guard, through winter snows and summer heats, from all the soldiers' joys debarred, keep watch and ward in London streets. For them no martial trumpets sound, for them there waits no victor's bay, but on the lonely midnight round, unarmed they face the fiercest fray. Alone they brave the brawler's blows, the burglar's shot, the ruffian's knife, undaunted dare 100 foes, and risk unflinching limb and life. What heroes then have more than they, to London's love and honour right? These quiet guardians of the day, these lonely soldiers of the night. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Old Clock on the Stairs by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org. The Old Clock on the Stairs. There standeth in my entrance hall a grim grandfather's clock, that holds my inmost heart in thrall, and gives it many a shock. It has a cruel, cunning face, and 2 long hands that glide like demon fates who run a race for ever by my side. So day by day and year by year it strikes a ceaseless knell, for all that to my heart was dear, for all I loved so well. It tolls for youth and love and trust, for joys and pleasures fled, for dreams long gathered to the dust, for hopes long cold and dead. In mournful beats it ticks away the moments of my span, and makes me, when I would be gay, a miserable man. No other sound the silence breaks, save when with hollow boom its sad sepulchral voice awakes the echoes of the tomb. It shall not take my life away, its raven croak no more shall tell me that I'm old and grey, and all my dreams are o'er. My fist is through its gloomy face, I wring its iron neck. Thus, thus I smash its heartless case, and dance upon the wreck. Hurrah, hurrah for hope's returns! The mocking voice is still. Within my breast ambition burns, and all my pulses thrill. That fateful tongue, thank God, I miss. I know not how time flies, and oh, where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
My Ambition by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Samuel Green. The hedges are green with the spring, the sun is on meadow and lea, the little birds merrily sing, and the blossom is sweet on the tree. I've wandered for many a mile, all around is feast for the eye, so I'll whittle a stick on this stile, and I'll grin as the girls go by. I am far from the turmoil of town. Here is rest in this Devonshire lane. Here is rest from the world's cruel frown. Here is rest from the passions and pain. Here, forgetting my woes for a while, I'll sit 'neath the blue southern sky and whittle a stick on the stile and grin as the girls go by. Sing on, little bird on the tree, little sunbeam, dance on and be gay. Oh, the future's nothing to me, and memory, please go and play. Here with nothing my temper to rile, I'd like to remain till I die and whittle a stick on the stile and grin as the girls go by. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Wish by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Chad Horner, from Balaclava. When London's wrapped in filthy fogs, when seized are my unmuzzled dogs, when full and fierce the east winds blow, I wish myself in Jericho. When all night long the howling cad disturbs my sleep and drives me mad, and milk carts rattle to and fro, I wish myself in Jericho. When snow and slush block up the street, and slides send skyward both my feet, and bang upon my back I go, I wish myself in Jericho. When county council cranks disgust, when schemes that drew my coin go bust, when bigots harass every show, I wish myself in Jericho. When frost gives way to sudden thaw, and all my pipes have got a flaw, and through my house the waters flow, I wish myself in Jericho. When for next Sunday's referee I have to do my M&C, while in dyspepsia's direst throe, I wish myself in Jericho. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Song of Heredity by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Chad Horner from Balaclava in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the north-east of the island of Ireland. The Song of Heredity. My father was a madman, do you wonder I'm insane? My mother wasn't pretty, do you wonder I am plain? My father was consumptive, and my hollow cheeks you see. Can you wonder I'm a drunkard, when my mother had DT? Science speaks out pretty plainly on hereditary taint, and the sinner breeds a sinner, as the saint beget a saint. They might call me Ananias and reproach me, since forsooth my papa was such a liar that I cannot tell the truth. When his ancestors for ages by their own mad acts have died, do you wonder that a fellow has a taste for suicide? When a nose for generations is the feature of a race, and you know a fellow's surname just by glancing at his face? When this modern law of nature throughout all creation runs, and its odds on roaring racers, having only roaring sons, do you think that Ananias, you should dub a luckless youth, whose papa was such a liar that he cannot tell the truth? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Scotch'd, Not Kilt by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Chad Horner from Balaclava in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the north-east of the island of Ireland. Scotch'd, Not Kilt, the Kaiser's song, I winna gang back to my mammy again. I winna gang back to auld Busy again. I'll never gang back to auld Busy again. I have held by his coat-tails this aught months and 10, but I'll never gang back to auld Busy again. I've held by his coat-tails, etc. Capperby came down the gloaming to woo. He lookit sae bonny and honest and true. Oh, come away, Willie, ne'er let Busy ken, and I made young Capperby the best of my men. Oh, come away, Willie, etc. He told me whatever I would I might do, and pressed hame his words wi' a smile on his mou'. So I fell on his bosom and said, Ye main rain, for Alblins, ye'll leave me a will o' my ain. So I fell on his bosom, etc. For many lang months sin' I came to the crown, auld Busy's been hectin' and haudin' me down. I've held by his coat-tails this aught months and 10, but I'll never gang back to y'all busy again. I've held by his coattails this 8 months and 10, but I'll never gang back to y'all busy again. I've held by his coattails, etc. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Last Resource by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org. The Last Resource. At 43, in broken health, the heel of fate has crushed my pride. No joy I find in work or wealth, there's nothing left but suicide. The wind blows ever from the east, it's madness now my trike to ride. My pony's lame, poor little beast, there's nothing left but suicide. My hair is thin, my face is fat, my waist is spreading far and wide. Last week I lost my favourite cat, there's nothing left but suicide. I'm not starred on any bills, the critics all my work deride. I'm sick of taking draughts and pills, there's nothing left but suicide. I am too sad to make a joke, the girl I love's another bride. The doctors will not let me smoke, there's nothing left but suicide. My house, I find, is built on clay, in vain to let it, I have tried. The income tax is due today, there's nothing left but suicide. What's this? A box of chocolates, with pale pink ribbon neatly tied. The sweets of life, again, O fate, I taste and laugh at suicide. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Ye Bars and Gates by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Kachuk. Ye bars and gates of Bloomsbury, how can ye stand so silent there? How can ye, knowing ye are doomed, for some small signs of grief forbear? He'll break his heart, will Bedford's Duke, whose grandeur county councils spurn, as he bemoans his feudal rights, departed never to return. Ye bars and gates, ye're comin' doon, no more ye'll block the freeman's path, and make the traveller lose his train, or rouse the British cabman's wrath. Wi' lightsome heart we root ye up, and leave the streets o' London free, and there's but one will mourn your loss, and that's his Grace the Duke of B. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Portrait of a Prince by a Society Gossiper by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Lola, Janie of Northern Virginia, August 2019. He's the dropsy, he's the gout, and he's looking like pegging out, and he's sobbing and he's sighing all the day, all the day. He is haggard, he is pale, and his limbs begin to fail, and his whiskers and his mustache are going gray, going gray. He is but a bag of bones, and he lies awake and groans when he's carried by his valet up to bed, up to bed. He's hollow-cheeked and eyed, and though everything is tried, he never sleeps a moment for neuralgia in the head, in the head. Bitter tears are in his eyes, night and morning as he cries. Oh, my health is slowly breaking, I'm so ill, I'm so ill. I shall soon be on the shelf, for I'm going like a gelf. Please oblige me with my mixture and a pill, by himself. Which I simply answer rot, for Wales hasn't gone to pot. Please to contradict the rumors that are rife, Now he's had a little rest, Wales can go it with the best, and he never felt so jolly in his life. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Strong Men, titled by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Lola, Janie of Northern Virginia, August 2019. They lined the quays on every shore. They fought for ships to take them o'er. They filled those ships from stern to stem, and still there was no end of them. They came by river, road, and rail, by every continental mail, by White Star, Inman, and Cunard, and sent the managers a card. With iron bars and chains of steel, a mixture of the sham and real, with mighty weights and cannonballs, they sought the London music halls. From every land beneath the sun, and each of them the strongest one, they all performed the selfsame feats, and still they played to big receipts. Still fiercer grew the strong man boom, and still for more the shows made room. For since so much one strong man drew, what wealth might there not be in two? The halls were crowded night and day to see strong men with dumbbells play. The playhouse saw its public lost, and all but strong man was a frost. They put a strong man in the play, the first in London day by day. Then Willard cried to Jones, "A plan! Put Sandow in the middleman." "Ah me," Pinheiro said, "too late. We might have saved the profligate. No Tosca and no Bernard beer, had we but had a Samson here. Fill the houses and the halls, like cram the boxes and the stalls. Wherever a strong man did a show, they had to add an extra row. The men of strength were Britain's pride, adored, exalted, defied, till suddenly John Bull awoke and rubbed his eyes and saw the joke. 'Good Lord,' he cried, and danced with rage. 'Have I gone daft in my old age? These chaps I've seen, I do declare, at every common country fair. £100 a week for this? Pooh! Bush! Here, hang it! Let me hiss! The chap at fairs who did all that collected coppers in his hat.' The strong men, finding all is over, had wisely sought another shore. But though they search from sea to sea, they'll never find such fools as we. This recording is in the public domain.
A Ballad of Soap by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Anita Sloma-Martinez. A Ballad of Soap, after Andrew Lang. The hours are passing slow. To see my watch I dread. 'Tis 10 o'clock, I know, and yet I lie in bed, with dull and aching head. That pint of fizz with Joe, that big cigar with Fred, have wrought dyspeptic woe. No more with friends I'll tope. It's 12, ho, Phyllis, ho! Hot water and some soap. I see the feet of crow around my lids of lead, my pallid face also with yellow hues o'erspread. My eyes are very red. What good is growling so? I'll wash myself instead. What means this healthy glow? What means this newborn hope? Why rosy do I grow? I'm using Samson's soap. My thoughts resume their flow. My garb of sloth is fled. I'm waltzing to and fro, and feel no longer dead. My gloomy hour has sped, a dashing, mashing bow. My yellow hue has fled. I'm game to ride or row. I envy not the Pope. I'm full of life and go. Thanks be to Samson's soap. Envoy. Prince, whose pet name is Ted, when you are feeling low, and wake at dawn and mope, and tumble out of bed, and wash from top to toe, use only Samson's soap. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Jokelatier by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Kachuk. Over the sobs of mourners, over the cry of pain, where men gather with bloodless faces to search for the mangled slain, the sound of my mocking laughter in the silence is loud and clear. What do I care for corpses? since I am a jokeletier, while the heart of the nation pulses in sympathy with woe, while the living claim their dead ones who lie in a ghastly row. Into the weeping faces with a pitiless glance I peer, as I merrily crack my wheezes, for I am a jokeletier, while strong men reel and sicken, and their eyes grow dim and red. My poor little brains I cudgel for a joke about the dead. I've a jest for a man's last moments, a pun for his open bier, and a jape for the day of judgment, for I am a jokeletier. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Bill Sykes's Protest by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. O England, can you hear it without a blush of shame? Our lay, they mean to queer it and stop our little game. It's right down mean and sneaking. They're going to give the blues to stop their boots from creaking, new India rubber shoes. It makes a Briton shirty and sets his hair on end. To think to tricks so dirty the law should condescend, that in the land of freedom and honourable views, the slops, e'en though they need 'em, should walk in silent shoes. Fair play, they says, a duel. There's honour among thieves, but this new dodge is cruel, for look how it deceives. Our mayor should call a meeting, his lordship can't refuse, denouncing law competing with crime in silent shoes. It's hard enough at present for us to earn our bread, and always most unpleasant to hear the peelers tread. But we between starvation and honesty must choose, if once the British nation allows these blarsted shoes. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Clarinet by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. When all the sunshine lies behind, and all the dusk before, when friends have turned to foes unkind, and love is love no more, when life is but a cruel ache, and living but a fret, 'tis then, poor heart, the time to take your good old clarinet. When wife and child have passed away, and health has broken down, when you are growing old and grey, and fortune wears a frown, when to your heart's despairing cry no answer you can get, 'tis then, if you are wise, you'll try your good old clarinet. Go, victim of life's battle, go, and heedless of your scars, find solace here for all your woe in half a dozen bars. 'Twill reconcile us to our stay here where our task is set, to hear life's million victims play the good old clarinet. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
No Evening Dress by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. The church believes God will not bless a crowd that comes in evening dress. Of worldliness the antidote, Our arch proclaims the morning coat. What folly, since God's only care is what we are, not what we wear. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Alone in London by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org. The dust blows through the empty street. The low skies gather grim and gray. The raindrops on the windows beat this cold and cheerless August day. And all my friends are far away, across the moors or by the sea. But I must linger, woe is me, since cruel fortune so doth choose, then, friends who read the referee, forgive me if I get the blues. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Volunteer by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Chad Horner. The Volunteer. It was a gallant volunteer. He woke one wintry night, the long-expected sound to hear. The foe is now in sight. He leapt from out his cosy bed. He kissed his frightened wife, then put his helmet on his head to fight for home and life. He gaily donned his uniform, such portions as he had, and then went out into the storm. The night was very bad. The snowflakes fell as large as eggs, the blast his bosom smote. He had no trousers on his legs, he had no overcoat. His heart was full of brave intent, he started at a trot, but oh, he shivered as he went. Il n'avait pas de bottes, 10,000 strong, in legs all bare, and only in their socks. Our fellows made the Frenchmen stare, yet stood their ground like rocks. But when the Frenchmen saw the foe, our noble volunteers, they laughed ha-ha and yelled ho-ho and greeted them with sneers. C'est drôle, they cried, c'est bien drôle, cette armée sans culotte, and Alphonse yelled to Anatole, il nous donne pas de bottes. The British blushed with bitter shame, their feelings were acute, and though they were extremely game, they felt too pained to shoot. Their wail was borne upon the breeze, the foe our army mocks, but still the cold benumbed their knees, the snow soaked through their socks. And so, because they weren't equipped as volunteers should be, the well-clad Frenchmen by them skipped, and it was all U.P. O Britons, for your country's sake, and all you hold most dear, a lesson from this story take, and clothe the volunteer. For trousers, boots, and overcoats, the Lord Mayor Whitehead had a cheque or Bank of England notes, and save your native land. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Those Boots by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Jesse Jupiter Yellen. Recorded at Hobocastle, 2019. Our prince a little change would seek, to town a short adieu he bids. In Paris spends his Whitsun week, and takes the missus and the kids. At Dover on the deck he stands, sea ad, the shortest of sea routes, and hies him o'er to Calais sands, in tourist tweed and untanned boots. The cares of state no longer vex, from fashion's whirl he steps aside, and takes a trip, our future Rex. And with him goes his silver bride. They take their boys and girls to see the show no sceptred hand salutes, and start from princely trammels free, in tourist tweeds and untanned boots. Prince, standing in the blazing light, that beats upon a modern throne, 'tis not in royal robes and bedight, I ween your happiest hours are known. The white stones on your road of life mark where you pluck sweet leisure's fruits, and with your boys and girls and wife, go trips in tweeds and untanned boots. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. A Sunday Song by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Jesse Jupiter Yellen. Recorded at Hobo Castle, 2019. I stood and I shivered last Sunday night, till I bade them set the fire alight. Then I sat with my feet on the fender bar, and I told them to bring me the whiskey jar. I filled me a glass, and I held it high, as I glared at the grey and the gloomy sky. And I sang to a sad funeral tune, the doleful dirge of an English June. "Oh, gruesome herald of Whitsun week," I cried as I gazed on the prospect bleak. "The blazing heat of our one hot day has fried us up and has passed away. And the weary summer of blights and chills has come to us big with its thousand ills. And the lips of the lovers are blue who spoon in Regent's Park in our English June. A red nose pressed to the window pane, the swirling dust and the threatening rain. A blue-black blight in the raw, rough air, a cutthroat climate and dull despair. A tear for the days that will come no more, a dose of physic at 12 and 4. And that is my Sunday afternoon in the Arctic arms of an English June." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Up the Rigi by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Jesse Jupiter Yellen. Recorded at Hobo Castle, 2019. Riding up the mountain in an open car, engine puffing bravely. Oh, how high we are! Higher we are climbing, to the clouds we sail, all the world's beneath us on the Rigi rail. Past the slopes of verdure, gay with gold and white, past the crags and fissures, up the giddy height. Torrents down below us, dashing through the vale, snow-clad peaks above us on the Rigi rail. Up, still up to cloudland, while the world below shrinks to dots and pygmies. Higher as we go, all around grows barren, timid girls grow pale, as the snow surrounds us on the Rigi rail. Up, at last, the summit, puffing Billy gains, and the sight that greets us pays for all our pains. Alp on Alp far stretching, lake and plain and vale, spread in glory round us on the Rigi rail. Nerves with joy are thrilling in that wondrous air, ne'er did eyes enchanted see a sight so fair. Ne'er till memory falters and my senses fail, shall I forget that journey upon the Rigi rail. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. A Plea for Mercy by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Jesse Jupiter Yellen. Recorded at Hobo Castle, 2019. Oh, do not flog the brutal rough who jumps upon his wife, or in a little drunken huff prods children with a knife. Oh, do not flog the brute who takes the old man by the throat and chokes him while a search he makes of trousers, vest, and coat. Oh, do not flog the coward cur who pulps a woman's face. It cannot do much good to her. And think of his disgrace. Oh, think of all the smart and pain. If his poor hide be thin, the cat, you know, must leave a stain on mind as well as skin. Oh, do not flog the prowling wretch who bashes us for pelf, but some nice, kind old parson fetch, or talk to him yourself. Present him with a kindly tract, or pray with him a while. Explain that skulls should not be cracked in such a shocking style. And when you've turned his wrath away and shown him he was wrong, then teach him, if you've time to say, some sweet salvation song. Far better let 10,000 such go free to bash again, than one should know the cat's vile touch or feel a moment's pain. Oh, do not flog in mercy spare the burglar's tender hide. Through murder's rife, what need we care? The scripture's on our side. Come then, ye bashing burglar crew, put up your sweet mouths so, and let the cranks who plead for you return you kiss for blow. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
If You Were Here by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org. If you were here, any husband to any wife, with apologies to Alfred Austin. If you were here, my butcher's bill would be more clear. The lifeguards out for exercise would not so often raise their eyes to where the housemaids smile and smirk, and play the hours away at work. If you were here, my morning tea perchance would slightly stronger be. My evenings, now so long and long, might know the solace of a song. I would not feel inclined to shriek when chairs and tables groan and creak. My midnight ghosts I should not fear, if you were here, if you were here. 'Tis sad to be alone, but still there is some sugar round the pill. I'm master now, and have my way. There's no one here to say me nay. Though all is silent as a tomb, I smoke my pipe in every room. When out no train I rush to catch, my key goes boldly in the latch. No more, lest I disturb your sleep, on tiptoe up the stairs I creep. Nor do I have to scratch my pate to think what kept me out so late. And that I'd oft to do, my dear, when you were here, when you were here. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Le Brav General by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Cornel Nemes in Reno, Nevada. It cost some cash to catch the goals and placard all the Paris walls, but his big balance never falls. Who finds the money? He travels like a little king and cuts a dash and does the thing, and spares no cost to have his fling. Who finds the money? He's no estate, he's lost his pay, yet 1,000 go from day to day in working France for boulanger. Who finds the money? In London he has settled down. He means to have his fling in town, a little king without a crown. Who finds the money? When kings and princes meet at tea, when statesmen other statesmen see, they jerk their thumbs at General B, and whisper on the strict QT, who finds the money? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Paris Exhibition by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Anita Sloma-Martinez. The Paris Exhibition. Within, without, abroad, at home, though all appears a bilious chrome, with May shall flee dyspeptic throes, and life assume a tint of rose. For France, the gay and debonair, will ask us to her fancy fair, the Exhibition. Then east and west and south and north will pour their choicest treasures forth, and all the world will hie away upon a pleasant holiday, while Frenchmen cry and chink the cash, we're glad Boulanger did not smash the Exhibition. And you, mamie of years ago, who with me wandered to and fro through all the aisles of wonders set like gems in some vast coronet, how sweet you were, mamselle, to me. Will you be there this time to see the Exhibition? O'er both our heads the years have rolled, and I am stout and growing old. And you are married, I dare say, and know a mother's cares today. Maybe our chairs, bath chairs I mean, may pass some day ere we've quite seen the exhibition. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The New Legend by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Anita Sloma-Martinez. The New Legend. When my liver's out of order and my nerves are all awry, and I want to sit in corners and to tear my hair and cry, when a demon stands behind me with a razor or a knife and suggests the use of either as a shortcut out of life, when the gloom outside my window is the gloom inside my heart, and the ghostly sounds about make me shake and make me start, then I walk about my dwelling, but my sorrows do not flee when I find my goods and chattels all were made in Germany. The globes upon my gas lamps bear that exquisite device. It is worked upon my carpets and the trap that catches mice. It is stamped upon my dusters and imprinted on my hat, and I half expect to find it on the collar of my cat. Made in Germany is the motto on my knocker and my bell, and the scraper and the doormat have it written large as well. From the basement to the attic, all around those words I see, and e'en my patent chimney pots were made in Germany. Then I wander forth for shelter from this legend, but in vain, for it pulks in flaming letters through my agitated brain. It is stamped on all the lamp-posts and the flagstones at my feet, and I see it on the helmets of the bobbies on the street. Give me respite from this legend, in my agony I cry, and my gentle Albert Edward says to comfort me he'll try, but while weeping on his bosom there is no relief for me, for like everything about me, he was made in Germany. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Mild December by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Kachuk. A balmy breeze o'er London plays, the summer sun is shining, the weather's clerk has, scandal says, undoubtedly been dining. Old fogies sit about the parks, and, dear, can you remember? Old Derby to old Joan remarks, such mildness in December. When Master Sandford takes his walks abroad with Master Merton, he says, "Oh, ain't I hot, oh locks, with my thick flannel shirt on." "My pupils will take notice, please," exclaims the Reverend Barlow. "It's warmer here by 7 degrees than 'tis in Monte Carlo. For garden seats the public run to Shoolbred's and to Maples. It's 5 degrees more in the sun in London than in Naples. I shut my eyes and dream a dream about our winter season that does not seem to have a gleam of common sense or reason. I dream that from the southern land the foreigners are flocking. They promenade along the Strand, the Thames embankment blocking. The train de luxe from every part brings foreigners to London. The Riviera breaks its heart, Algeria is undone. In search of sun from southern Spain, the Andalusian wanders. The Roman lolls in Drury Lane, the Turk in Holborn ponders. The world this mild December flocks to our delightful climate. Rich Russian gainst rich German knocks, and princeling jostles primate. The great hotels are packed and jammed, and all the trades are booming. The theatres and cafes crammed, and summer roses blooming. I dream a dream of London made a winter spot delightful. I wake from sleep and start dismayed to find the weather frightful. No balmy breeze o'er London plays, no summer sun is shining. 'Tis not the clerk, so scandal says, but I who have been dining. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Last Duke by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. They had taken the brightest, the nicest, the best. They had carefully sorted and sampled the rest. America's daughters no quarter had shown, and but one Duke of Britain was blooming alone. Belgravian mothers in frenzied despair tore out by the roots their luxuriant hair, and the maidens of Albion shuddered and sighed, and but for their eyes would have certainly cried. Every prize of the season had gone to the States. The American girls had the best of the weights. The piles of the paws and their personal charms had proved in the battle all-conquering arms. And now but one Duke there remained to be had. He was fat, he was 50, and said to be mad. But the bells of Great Britain to rescue him swore from the sirens who hail from Columbia's shore. Then the bells of Columbia picked up the glove, and encouraged his grace to make desperate love. They crowded Cunarders and weighted white stars, and descended on London in drawing-room cars. But the maidens who flirt 'neath the Union Jack at the Yankee invasion weren't taken aback. Though it must be confessed there were exquisite types of feminine flirts 'neath the stars and the stripes. The Duke stood aghast 'twixt the double array, but endeavored to all some attention to pay. First he smiled at a Briton, then ogled a Yank, then bolted and hailed the first cab on the rank. He drove to the station, and catching the train, he sailed o'er the stormy and murderous main. He landed at Calais, and fell at the feet of the first pretty French girl he met in the street. He asked her for her hand, and the maiden replied, "Avec plaisir, monsieur." "Here's a church, step inside." And they were married at once, and next day they set sail by the London and Chatham's first outgoing mail. Sir Algernon Borthwick, who edits the Post, had received the first news from the opposite coast, and the maids of our isles and the maids of the States in special editions were told of their fates. Peace with honour at once was proclaimed 'twixt the fair, as neither had won, what did either set care? And the Duke was much praised on both sides by the press, and the little French Duchess is quite a success. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. To the Fog by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. 1,000 welcomes let us sing to that dear old November fog, which harbingers the days that bring the early gas, the flaming log. Ah, well we know, sweet fog, when first you wrap the town in your embrace, the winter from its shell has burst, and come to bless the human race. I love the merry winter, when the day is darker than the night, for then, contented in my den, I sit beside the fire and write. I love the fog that wraps in gloom my second-class suburban square, for then within my dingy room I light the gas and let it flare. I hate the dreary days of love, the nights that shut the black world out, and so I prize all things above the fog that puts the day to rout. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Reminiscences of Mr. John Dobbs by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Elaine Conway, England. Written by himself, with the spelling corrected, the grammar looked to, and the language touched up by a literary friend. My name is John Dobbs. In the year '58 I was born in a street which I fear was fifth rate. My pa was a gent who had a reverse, and my ma took in other folks his babies to nurse. Thus early my lifelong acquaintance began with the folks who are first in society's van. In the cradle next mine slept the son of a peer, who had gone to the dogs all through skittles and beer. At 6 I developed a beautiful voice, which made the fond hearts of my parents rejoice. I was sent out to sing with a man in the street, but I plied my vocation among the elite. We sang in the squares where proud nobles reside, and often a duchess's face I espied, as she peered o'er the blind at the little artiste that I grew to mind duchesses not in the least. I pass o'er my youth, merely pausing to state that I met many folks who were famous and great, and it frequently happened my supper I took with a tip-top celebrity's housemaid or cook. I was just in the 20th year of my age when I made my debut on the music hall stage, and 'twas there that I soon made a very big name and earned all my subsequent fortune and fame. I'd a song with a chorus of jammy jam jam that was sung from Southend to Seringapatam, and often when singing my song at the halls I've seen lords and marquises smile in the stalls. Lord Beaconsfield once I'd the honour to meet, his lordship was walking up Parliament Street. By the merest of chances I trod on his toe, and his lordship looked up and remarked to me, "Oh!" Conversations like these I have frequently had with the rich and the great, and the good and the bad, and I once had the pleasure and honour to dine with a prince who's a very great patron of mine. The banquet, I own, was a public affair, at which his Royal Highness had taken the chair, and I paid for my ticket, but still I've a right to say with the prince I had dinner that night. And now, as folks' memories seem all the go, I've thought that the public might p'raps like to know all about the great people of whom I can speak, with a candour becoming a lion comique. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Pickpocket Poems by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Emma Charlotte. 1. The way was long, the wind was cold, the minstrel was infirm and old. Of 2 bionks I robbed the bard, for which I got 3 months with hard. 2. She wore a wreath of roses the night that first we met. I went to call her carriage, ne'er that night can I forget. I held the door a moment, and as she stepped inside, I sneaked her lovely bracelet and round the corner guyed. The next time that I met her, 'twas in the busy Strand. She wore a hat and feathers, and her purse was in her hand. I saw it in a moment, and methinks I see her now, as I snatched her purse and hooked it, ere she'd time to make a row. Yet once again I saw her, it was in the witness box. A fashionable bonnet adorned her golden locks. She looked at me a moment, then said what she'd to say, and that is why they sent me to gloomy Holloway. 3. It was night in the month of October, and the stars were alight in the sky, when a gent as I thought wasn't sober, the corner I stood at passed by. I saw that his chain was a gold one, I guessed that his watch was the same, and so, as the gent was an old one, I thought him legitimate game. I'd got his gold chain in my fingers, and was going to give it a tug, when whack came a couple of stingers, 2 beauties and right on my lug. Then I'd one that struck stars from my peeper, and another that shifted my jaw, a regular send you to sleeper, and that is the last that I saw. The last that I saw till a peeler, to fill sorrow's cup to the brim, put my carcass inside a 4-wheeler, and said, "What a flat to try him." "Who is he?" I groaned as in torture. I nervously felt for my face, and he said, "Well, you tackled a scorcher. That elderly gent was Jem Mace." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Cigarette by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Chad Horner. Young England twixt its idle lips a tiny twirl of baggy grips, and puffs a lazy cloud of blue, and rests between a draw or two. Our youth, alas, have grown of late so languid and effeminate, they've dropped cigars in heavy wet for lemon squash and cigarette. The vulgar pipe is rarely seen, their dainty lips-sing lips between. The dude would scorn a big cigar, his tout ensemble a weed would mar, and so he rolls the paper toys we used to smoke as little boys, and all the dressed-up mashing set affect the foreign cigarette. But now they tremble and go pale, the doctors tell a dreadful tale. A wretched fellow writes to say they'd better throw such weeds away. Their faultless shirt fronts wake with fear, and crease and tumble when they hear they in their breasts a viper pet. There's poison in the cigarette. Go, let the foreign fellow puff his tissue paper Turkish stuff, and let young England scorn its yoke, and once more like a Briton smoke between his lips a good cigar, whose bright red glow one sees afar. He'll feel a man and soon forget the poisoned foreign cigarette. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Early Milk Cart by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Anita Sloma-Martinez. The Early Milk Cart. I do not know what you are like, I know not where you go. I've never seen you as you jolt along the streets below. It's always in the early morn my house you rattle by, and banish sleep that won't return, however hard I try. I wonder if the fiend who drives like mad through Gower Street and on the asphalt likes to hear his horse's heavy feet, and bangs against the curb and makes his swaying milk cans crash, desires to settle straight away a nervous mortal's hash. Through weary hours I lie awake and toss from side to side, a genuine jackal tortured by a much too real hide. And when at last my drooping lids have shut that hide away, the early milk cart rattles by and bids the demon stay. You little wreck, you noisy thing, as 'neath the fading stars you jump and jolt, and every jerk on some poor toiler jars. You little wreck, as merrily your cans together bang, you've roused a serpent in my breast which has a poisoned fang. All heedless of the web that fate has spun to hold me fast, sometimes I sail o'er summer seas where ne'er a shadow's cast, and youth and hope are mine again, and life's a sweet green isle that sleeps upon the ocean's breast and basks in heaven's smile. My lazy bark floats placidly towards that haven fair. The sunny slopes grow nearer still, one moment and I'm there. One little leap from deck to shore, I wake with quite a start. The milk cans dance a carmagnole upon that early cart. Yet sometimes have I cause to bless the awful noise they make. 'Tis when from some infernal dream their crashing bids me wake. When on my breast a demon sits, who's marked me for his prey. I'm glad that milk carts go about so early in the day. Pass on, disturber of my rest, pass on thy way unseen. You little know how very near to murder you have been. Your reckless driver never dreams how great has been his share in making me the wreck I am, and p'raps he doesn't care. Yet when I dream the dreamless sleep in that great silent town, when ne'er a cart of any kind goes rattling up and down, the coroner who sat on me may possibly suggest that died of too much early milk would suit my tombstone best. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Collaborators by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Elaine Conway, England. Once on a time 'twas the freak of fate that Fidget and Whims should collaborate. So they sat them down on a midsummer day to think of a plot and to write a play. They both shook hands ere the task began, adopting the prize king's general plan, and said, if each other we chance to kill, it isn't a murder with right good will. They buried their heads in their hands awhile, till Fidget looked up with a sickly smile, and timidly stammered a first rough plot, which Whims immediately said was rot. They buried their heads in their hands again, till a notion fluttered in Whim's brain. He got to the middle, and there he stuck, for Fidget declared the plot was muck. They argued the point till it came to blows, and Whims hit Fidget upon the nose. Then Fidget the inkstand seized, and threw at Whims's head, which it split in two. Then each in sorrow resumed his seat, and their hands they wrung and their bosoms beat. And presently Fidget, his cheeks aflame, with pride declared he'd the hero's name. It wasn't a name that Whims would keep, and he argued till Fidget began to weep. So Whims suggested a name instead, and that to another discussion led. They flew at each other like angry cats, they tore their shirts, and they crushed their hats. They smashed the table, and broke the chairs, and kicked each other right down the stairs. They banged each other against the wall, but made it up in the entrance hall. They said they would go for a quiet walk, and begin again with a general talk. They talked so loudly in Bedford Square, that the people about all stopped to stare, and a poor little child from a window fell, in terror at hearing Whims's yell. They called each other such dreadful names, that they shocked a couple of aged dames, who called a bobby to stop the din. He tried, and couldn't, so ran them in. They explained to the sitting magistrate that they'd only tried to collaborate, but the magistrate said such scenes must cease, so he bound them over to keep the peace. They promised they would, and they got it still, for up to the present the peace is nil. But see it finished perhaps we shall, when they both come out of the hospital. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The New Cure by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Elaine Conway, England. To Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, you're very worried, and your face looks very sad. By the Gladstonites you're flurried, their behaviour is so bad, and your liver is affected, and you're bilious as well, but you need not be dejected. You'll be sound, sir, as a bell, if you switch back, if you switch back, if you switch back, sir, forthwith. It's a patented health giver, it will act upon your liver, if you switch back, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith replies, Mr. D, I'm gay and jolly, and my fingers I can snap at the opposition folly, and the Parnellites who yap. I can view the situation with a calm contented smile, and whate'er the aggravation, keep my temper all the while, for I've switched backed, for I've switched backed, for I've switched backed, Mr. D, and that patented health giver has, in acting on my liver, made another man of me. To a judge. Henry Hawkins. People mutter that dyspeptic pain at times is the cause of words you utter. When a-sitting upon crimes, when your liver's wrong, your fury can no murderer withstand, and you sum up to the jury with a black cap in your hand. You should switch back, you should switch back. Please, Sir Henry, don't say fudge, for the switchback it will shake you, stir your liver up and make you quite a nice agreeable judge. Sir Henry replies, Mr. D, no more dyspeptic. I am called a kindly man, of a prisoner's worth no skeptic. I defend him all I can. My delight and my endeavour is the jury to restrain, and to restore a culprit clever. to his loving friends again. For I've switchbacked, yes, I've switchbacked Mr. D. And that patented health giver has, in acting on my liver, made another judge of me. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Newborn Babe by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Elaine Conway, England. There was once a newborn infant. At the moment of its birth, it became the greatest villain that was ever known on earth. For there wasn't any item in the catalogue of crime which that babe had not committed in the briefest space of time. When its little peepers opened to their primal ray of light, they'd a look of dissipation and of being out all night, and before a score of seconds had passed o'er its infant head, it had in a fit of passion kicked its mother out of bed. At a week a scheme of murder floated through its baby brain, for the monthly nurse unwisely had displayed her watch and chain. So he slew her, and he stole them with an infantile ha-ha. Had he managed that suspicion should be cast upon his pa. Then he crowed till he was purple, and his back they had to pat, when the famous Mr. Berry made his pa a new cravat. And when nobody was looking, and the hours nice and still, he secured his father's papers, and he tampered with the will. He bequeathed himself the mansion, the carriages and plate, and all the landed property and personal estate. When the law his pa had buried, with a sly satanic mirth, he antedated 20 years his certificate of birth. Then at once he took possession, and he told his ma to go, and because she made objections, pushed her out into the snow. She was taken to the workhouse, where her widowed heart soon broke, for she couldn't stand the skilly, and she turned against the toke. Then this wretched new-born infant, knowing not a parent's care, began to blue the property to which he was the heir. Through keeping shady company, he went from bad to worse. He was not the sort of baby that a decent girl could nurse. At law and at morality, that wicked baby mocked. He was such a thorough villain that society was shocked. And it was not much astonished when, before completing 3, he had wrecked his constitution and had suffered from D.T. At the age of 4, a bloated, shattered martyr to the gout, he arsoned so incautiously the office found him out. To escape a prosecution, he committed suicide, and the world has been much better since that little darling died. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Button by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Anita Sloma-Martinez. The Button. A Tale of the Tunnel. The Premier sat in the Premier's chair, and he said to his colleagues assembled there, "The Cabinet meets, as you all are aware, to discuss the momentous button. The time for action has come at last. The French in the tunnel are gathering fast. Now is the time their plans to blast. I am going to touch the button." He put out his finger to do the deed, but a minister cried, "We are not agreed, that the country stands in such desperate need of a touch of that awful button. The tunnel's a big commercial speck. Just think of the property we shall wreck. There are plenty of ways the foe to check. Let's try 'em before the button." And then there arose a big debate, and the cabinet sat till rather late before they could settle the final fate of Sir Edward Watkins' button. They argued con and they argued pro, till a message came to let them know the commander-in-chief was down below in a fury about the button. And while the statesmen were still in doubt, the panting duke, he was rather stout, rushed in with his brawly blown inside out, and he yelled, "You fools, the button!" In vain did Sir Watkin weep and say, "Oh, think of the widows and orphans, pray! The finger of fate, unless you stay, their shares won't be worth a button." "What are the shares?" fierce Cambridge cried, "to the fall of Britain, the ocean's pride?" He pushed Sir Watkin, who reeled aside, and placed his thumb on the button. But alas for the schemes of men and mice! He pressed it once and he pressed it twice, but his heart stood still and his blood was ice. There was something wrong with the button. The tricolour floats from St. Paul's today, for led by the General Boulanger, the French have come and they mean to stay, now they've passed the dangerous button. When out of order it proved to be, the whole French army came through with glee that wonderful tunnel beneath the sea. And so much for Sir Watkin's button. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Façon de Parler by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Elaine Conway, England. Sir Charles Russell. When you said that jockeys are such d thieves, what did you mean? The Duke of Portland. It was merely a façon de parler. When I say that a race is an infamous ramp, when I say that a man is a terrible scamp, these expressions are not of the genuine stamp, but merely a façon de parler. If my overwrought feelings find vent and relief in calling a fellow a thundering thief, you mustn't conclude that I speak my belief. It's merely a façon de parler. If I write to a friend on a matter that's grave, and denounce so-and-so as a rascally knave, you mustn't regard it as anything save what is known as a façon de parler. And the use of a word, which I need not repeat, in no way refers to Plutonian heat. It is always accepted among the elite as merely a façon de parler. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Jackson by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Chad Horner. From Ballyclare in County Antrim, Northern Ireland, situated in the northeast of the province of Ulster. Jackson, or on the track. We have heard of the bird by which Roche won renown, the bird to posterity Boyle handed down, the bird which the schoolboy who is not a dunce will remember could be in two places at once. But the bird of Sir Boyle must now take a back seat, while we sing of John Jackson's more wonderful feat. John Jackson has written his commonplace name in the boldest of hands on the parchment of fame. A convict, he played with his warder at spoof, then brained him and made his escape through the roof, walked boldly away in a broad arrow suit, and nobody seems to have noticed his route. None saw him depart, but, as if to atone, he has never gone anywhere since, and unknown. All over the kingdom in less than a week he has swaggered about with most marvellous cheek, appearing no worse for his terrible crime in Hampstead and Hull at the very same time. He's been traced to Penzance with a tramp for his pal. At Thurso, when seen, he was treating a gal. At Epsom he passed a flash note in the ring, backed Ayrshire, and then was again on the wing, flying north, flying south, if we rumours believe, reaching Brighton and Glasgow the very same eve. He's been seen on the switchback all over the town. At Epping he knocked many coconuts down. He has mixed with the parsons at Exeter Hall, and he'll doubtless be seen at Her Majesty's ball. And he came up to London on purpose to see the princess's drama, the something my tree. So Jackson the murderer roams over the land, one day in the Highlands, the next in the Strand. Men, women and children can see at a glance he's the chap who has led the police such a dance. but they sworn to betray him by gesture or look, and are mum till the murderer's taken his hook. Oh please, dear detectives, who're still on the track, we know that no skill, no devotion you lack. We know that you're bound, the first moment you can, to collar this wicked and wonderful man. But it's better to let him go free for 6 months than to take him in 25 places at once. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Another Danger by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Sarah Brown. September 24th, 2019, Essex Junction, Vermont. My house was in flames, and the smoke and the heat by the staircase I found would prevent my retreat. So I rushed to the window and opened it wide, and I shouted for help that I might not be fried. The window was many a foot from the ground. The people came running and gathered around. They asked me to jump, but I smiled and I said, "The pavement is rather too hard for my head." My plans soon assuming a definite shape, I said I would wait while they fetched the escape. They went off to find it, but came back to shout that it wasn't the time for escapes to be out. "I am burning," I cried, "I'm stifled with smoke. If you don't get me out, I shall certainly choke. Go tell the brave fellows who guard us from fire to bring the escape, or I'm bound to expire." They went off again, and each man did his best. They scoured the east and they scoured the west. But wherever they went, the result was the same. I was left to the mercy of smoke and of flame. They borrowed long ladders and a blanket and sheet. Then they asked me to jump about 52 feet. But objecting to dash out my brains on the stone, I could only reply with a shriek and a groan. The flames would not wait, so they burst through the room, and I felt the hot breath of my terrible doom. One last look I gave, but escape saw I none. The men were off duty, their work being done. My cinders together they carefully swept. The press were indignant, my relatives wept. But I, who have passed to a sphere far away, am able the blame at the right door to lay. No blame must attach to the gallant brigade, overworked and, I'm sorry to say, underpaid. And I failed to discover a weakness or flaw in the rules as laid down by our brave Captain Shaw. No doubt the disaster which killed me was dire, but the whole of the blame must be laid on the fire, which chose to break out, to its shame be it said, at a time when the firemen had gone home to bed. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
After the Act by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Kachuk. The Act of Sir John had been passed by the state, and the shops were all closed as Big Ben thundered 8. The desolate streets were denuded of light, and only the gin palace gas jets were bright. The widow, whose poor little shop was her all, a tear on the shroud she was making let fall. One daughter upstairs in the garret lay dead, and another was dying, the doctor had said. Ah, bitter the doom that the widow foresaw. She was ruined and crushed by the merciful law. Her trade was all done with the people, you see, who only at 7 or 8 are set free. So her trade had dropped off, for no customers came. She was called on to close in humanity's name. For in England, the land where dear liberty reigns, if you sell after 8, you are fined for your pains. No matter that she by herself did the trade, and had neither shopman nor shopgirl to aid. The law of the Lubbock had settled her fate. A widow mayn't work for herself after 8. To the butcher in debt, to the baker as well, how the rent would be met, the poor soul couldn't tell. And she thought with a feeling of terror and dread of the funeral bill for the child who lay dead. Not a coin in the till, and tomorrow, oh God, to be laid with her darling at rest 'neath the sod, to have passed from a land where the fanatics rave, and free Britons load with the chains of the slave. Ah, a customer comes with her purse in her hand. She wants this, she wants that, but the law of the land forbids the poor widow to sell. It's too late. The curfew has tolled. It's a minute past 8. But the silver is there, in the hand that's held out. The poor widow weeps, the police are about. But the silver would save her. She knows it's a crime, but she sells half a crown's worth of goods. After time, she sells them, and clutches the silver with joy, when a bobby pops in, a mere bit of a boy, and exclaims, "All right, missus, I've copped you at last. I've been watching the place for a week or two past." She is summoned and fined. Oh, just think of her sins. She had sold a young woman a packet of pins, some paper, some envelopes, and, oh, the crime, a Bible and prayer book, and all after time. The widow is ruined, her stock seized for debt. She is sent to the workhouse, the shop is to let. Let all honest widows be warned by her fate. How dared she do work at a minute past 8? O Lubbock, when moving your merciless bill, you exclaimed in a voice that made Westminster thrill, "What crimes are committed in liberty's name, in humanity's, surely you meant to exclaim." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Rigadoon by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Michael Knowles. The sweetest joy for him on earth was not the minute's maddened mirth. For him no subtle joyance hid the blood feast of the Bassarid. But when unto the village green the Streffens came with modest mien, and bashful Chloe's there would steal, he gaily danced a Highland reel. The manor's lord, he knew not why, his cards bore only plain Sir Guy, nor had he e'er been known to claim, in peace or war, another name. Of noble blood and ancient race, of lissom limb and florid face, he scorned his rent-roll, though 'twas big, and revelled in the Irish jig. Of Irish blood and Scotch descent, new grace to jig and reel he lent, but, being British to the core, he would not England's dance ignore. So, when his tenants flocked around to see him nimbly twist and bound, before he blessed them and withdrew, he always danced a hornpipe too. From youth to manhood, day by day, Sir Guy would dance the years away, beloved by all he lived among, the grave and gay, the old and young, performing for the common weal, the jig, the hornpipe, and the reel, and these he might be dancing yet, had he not made a foolish bet. It happened thus to Arcady. There came one day a young MP, who sneered when flushed with beer and wine at all things human and divine. He joined the crowd upon the green, assumed a supercilious mien, and when Sir Guy had done, he said, a kid could lick him on his head. The crowd drew back in sudden awe, which, when the sneering stranger saw, he flung his glove upon the ground, and cried, "Sir Guy, £1,000, I'll bet you that you cannot dance a little thing I saw in France. Its English name's the Rigadoon." Sir Guy replied, "Good afternoon." The tenants eyed their lord askance. There was a step he could not dance. For jigs and reels they did not care, and said the hornpipe they could spare. Sir Guy exclaimed, while tears he wept, "The situation I accept. I'll win that 1,000 of the loon, and you shall have your Rigadoon." With saddened face and humbled head, to foreign shores the dancer fled, and haunted France's village greens, and gay guinguettes and lowly scenes. He learned sa ira how to troll, he learned the curious Carmagnole. He found the can-can very soon, but could not find the Rigadoon. A wanderer from a foreign strand, One summer reached his native land. He sought the green of days gone by, but no one recognized Sir Guy. A crowd came up. He gave a bound, cried, "See me win the £1,000. Behold, my friends, this afternoon, your lord will dance a rigadoon." He danced his dance with pride and glee, but silence fell on Arcady. The tenants frowned and looked askance. They called it an improper dance, and begged he would at once desist, as Mr. Burns, the socialist, required the ground that afternoon. They did not want no rigadoon. The young MP had run in debt, was broke and could not pay his bet. The natives jeered the twists and turns, and spurned their squire for Mr. Burns. This proves how mad we are to roam, in search of steps too far from home, prize British dances as a boon, and leave the French their rigadoon. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
How to Write a Novel the Old-Fashioned Way by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org. You start with a murder and somebody is killed, for the public still dearly delighted to be thrilled. You make it a mystery. Nobody knows who gave John Tregonith those terrible blows. Since jealousy is always a motive for crime, your heroine's loved by two men at a time. Poor John, who has gone where the good niggers go, and big Ethelbert Brown, who was always his foe. It is Ethelbert Brown who is charged with the deed. There's a flaw in the evidence. Ethelbert's freed. Then he parts with his sweetheart, a heart-rending scene, for she vows that John's body their love lies between, and ne'er till it's proven to the world far and wide who committed the deed will sweet Grace be a bride. So heavenward Ethelbert raises his eyes and swears he will prove it and then claim his prize. Now Ethelbert's mother has views of her own, for she once found Miss Grace and Tregonith alone. They were both much excited, discussion ran high, but the good dame dissembled, not wishing to pry. Yet when Ethelbert goes, his mamma stayed behind, one awful, one dreadful idea in her mind. By her boy's own affiances she thinks John was slain, but she daren't tell her darling 'twould cause him such pain. From a half-witted servant the son gets a clue. The half-witted servant is known as Mad Hugh. But the story tells blanches Ethelbert's hair. On the night of the murder his mother was there. It seems she suspected his sweetheart and John, in the words of Mad Hugh, were carrying on. In her anger maternal she picked up a knife, and her boy's hated rival departed this life. In the mansion paternal Grace lives with her dad. But her face, once so sunny, grows sallow and sad, for she thinks it immoral, from facts which transpire, John did fall a victim to Ethelbert's ire. So now you've the mother suspecting Miss G, and the son half persuaded 'twas old Mrs. B, while Miss G feels convinced that the claret was spilt by her lover, who some day must swing for his guilt. You pile up the agony, now, to the end, and you've three loving bosoms with anguish to rend. If skilfully handled, your plot will mislead, till in turn the fogged reader thinks each did the deed. Then, when you have given your hurrying scope, you bring the brave hero right under the rope. But just as his lordship assumes the black cap, you come to a startling denouement, kerslap. The half-witted servant comes in with a rush. There's a hubbub in court, then a hum, then a hush, and the idiot explains, and gives proof that he's right, that he did the murder himself out of spite. Now you wind up your story with wedding and glee, and the young married couple hug old Mrs. B. Then you put in 3 stars to show time has flown past, and you drop in some babies in chapter the last. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The German Gym by George R. Sims. read for LibriVox.org by Cornel Nemes in Reno, Nevada. We've been married 10 years today, dear. Ah, me, how the time has flown since I whispered in church one morning, I will, in an undertone. You've changed a little, my darling. Your figure is not so slim as it was when you won the medal that night at the German gym. You're stouter, and threads of silver now shine in the curly locks that were black as the wing of raven the night that I saw you box. I can see you now with gloves on, in the pride of your strength and limb, as you fought your man to his corner that night at the German gym. I notice your socks of scarlet and your jersey of dainty cream, and I said to myself, how handsome, and I fell in a blissful dream. But, oh, when your nose was bleeding, my eyes with the tears grew dim, and I hated the man who punched you that night at the German gym. And when, as the fight grew fiercer, he gave you a bad black eye, and the hard-hearted people cheered him, I felt I should have to cry. But, pulling yourself together, you hammered away at him till he reeled like a drunken gaby that night at the German gym. And oh, when the nice kind judges declared you had won the fight, and the people rose up and shouted, I trembled with wild delight. I felt so proud of my lover that my eyes began to swim. I never knew how I loved you till that night at the German gym. And now we've been 10 years married. And Johnny, our boy, is 8. His dad is too stout for boxing and has doubled his fighting weight. But I hope that in years to come, dear, it is only a mother's whim, our Johnny will put the gloves on and box at the German gym. I should like to sit there with you, dear, the night that our boy competes, and see him upholding bravely the fame of his father's feats. It will carry us back in fancy to the past that no time can dim, when his dad was the champion boxer of the dear old German gym. The end of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Totty by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Alex Caliso. As she walked along the street, with her little place of meat, and the summer sunshine falling on her golden bonnet fair, bright as angel from the skies, were her dark blue marten pies. In my east and west then Cupid shot a shaft and left it there. She's a Grecian, I suppose, and of Hampstead Heath 2 rows, in her sunny sound that glistened like 2 pretty strings of pearls. Down upon my bread and cheese did I drop a murmur, please? Be my storm and drive, dear Totty. Oh, you darlingest of girls. Then a bow wow by her side, who till then had stood and tried a Janie Lee to banish, which was on his turn as well. Given hydrophobic bark, she cried, what a Noah's Ark. And right through my ranting ridges did my cribbage pace excel. Who would dog I could stop, she had called ginger pop, who said, "What the Henry Neville? Do you think you are doing there?" And her head as of a slung, while the fellow's chambers strung, and the water joist was tortoise, with the golden bonnet fair. End of a poem. This recording is in public domain.
A Welshman in London by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. He came with his harp from the mountain of Wales. The spirit of poetry flowed in his blood. Declining the engine that runs on the rails, he tramped to the fortified city of Lud. For him had the universe paused in its course. For him had all progress been nipped in the bud. He came as a bard, haughty, hoary, and hoarse, to sing in the fortified city of Lud. He sought for a mountain to sit on its brow, and give off his lay after chewing the cud. And he found, after searching, the mount that is now Snow Hill, in the fortified city of Lud. He called on the Britons who gathered to jeer, to list to a lay which would curdle their blood. But a bobby came up and said, "None of that here." Strange, in the fortified city of Lud. He saw no policeman, such things could not be. But the words of invective came forth in a flood, and so the policeman, 092C, ran him in the fortified city of Lud. With his harp he was placed in the dock the next day, when the magistrate brought down his fist with a thud, and told him 10 shillings he'd have to pay for obstructing the road in the city of Lud. The bard has gone back to his mountain in Wales, with his national vanity dragged through the mud, and his faith rudely shaken in taffy-told tales of the ancient and fortified city of Lud. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Magistrate by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. By a lunatic laureate. Gaily the constable kissed the book, and said with a smile, as his oath he took, "It's only the facts as I mean to state. I believe you, my boy," said the magistrate. Then the constable told the strangest tales, how the chap in the dock was the Prince of Wales, and he'd seen him begging at Albert Gate. "I believe you, my boy," said the magistrate. He watched the prince till he saw him try the pockets of ladies walking by, and pass the swag to a swell mob mate. "I believe you, my boy," said the magistrate. Then the constable added he'd seen the queen, who said what a handful her boy had been, and she guessed that the gallows would be his fate. "I believe you, my boy," said the magistrate. Then the constable said when he ran Wales in, he swore and struggled and kicked his shin, and bit off his ear and a portion ate. "I believe you, my boy," said the magistrate. The prince he called for his royal mamma, and into the box went Victoria. She proved an alibi full of weight. "You're not on your oath," yelled the magistrate. "The case is proved," to the prince said he. "You deserve 6 months, but I'll give you 3. "I'll write to the Times," cried the prince irate. "Take him away," shrieked the magistrate. The queen went out of the court in tears, as the bench indulged in some parting sneers. And skilly and toke was the prince's fate. "It'll do him good," said the magistrate. But Parliament took up the prince's case, and the young P.C. with a scared white face read out to his pal the big debate. "It's awfully hot," said the magistrate. Then the constable said, "It's the blooming press as has settled our nice little games, I guess. We'd better resign, as the row's so great." "I believe you, my boy," said the magistrate. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Imperial Institute by George R. Sims. Recorded for LibriVox.org by Miles Lawrence at FormulaFreak.com. Hail, O Imperial Institute! Strike the tabor and play the lute. This is South Kensington's latest fruit. Hail, O Imperial Institute! Rise in thy might and make envy mute, slanderous sneer and snarl refute, slap the face of the bellowing brute, noble Imperial Institute. Our prince he promised that coot he'd find us a brand new site to suit, and leave the clique and its ill repute outside the Imperial Institute. So hail, Imperial Institute, India, colonies, Kyles of Butte, lands of Britain by every route, Heligoland too far to root. Into our laps your treasure shoot, for you'll guess if you're only slightly cute, that there'll always be plenty of room for loot in the noble Imperial Institute. End of poem. This recording is part of the public domain.
The Plan of Campaign by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Campbell Schelp. The heart of the nation is throbbing with grief at the tales that are told of the winter distress. We are longing to hear of some scheme of relief that will make London's burthen of misery less. But what we're to do, or how best to commence, there's nobody able, it seems, to explain. Oh, isn't there someone with courage and sense to draw up a workable plan of campaign? The work of the nation is all in arrears. We tinker the laws that need thorough repair. We potter about between commons and peers, and fools in the Senate their eloquence air, to rout the obstruction that stands in the way, and wields a long tongue and gives battle to brain. Is there none who can marshal a force for the fray, and act on a sensible plan of campaign? There are women of England who toil for their bread, poor hard-working sisters and mothers and wives, whose years are a slavery, dreary and dread, who drag out their cruel and colorless lives. Can nothing be done that may better their state? Shall the white women slaves in their bondage remain? O manhood of Britain, think of their fate, and start the new year with some plan of campaign. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The People's Palace by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Campbell Schelp. Sing of the People's Palace, a tale of Arabian Nights, a place where the tolling masses could feast on all true delights. It was opened with morning lectures, and closed with an evening hymn, and the Bishop of London whispered it was just the place for him. It was open for recreation from 9 until 6 p.m., which times, said the working classes, were specially fixed for them. It was closed for the day on Sunday, and on Saturday afternoon, so the very select declared it a perfectly priceless boon. To cater for men and women who toil for their daily bread, the beer of their hearts was vetoed, and sherbet was sold instead, and they made it a coffee palace, with scones and a plate of thick, with counters for almond hardbake, and licorice in the stick. The pictures were all improving, the moral of all was grand, and at intervals there were concerts by the Blue Ribbon Army Band, with exhibits in big glass cases of terrible temperance facts, and the entrance fee included a bundle of stirring tracts. It was built at the lavish outlay of £12 million, which included the church and chapel and the mission hall in the grounds, but as nobody wanted sermons and sherbet and ginger beer, It was sold at a great reduction to a philanthropic peer, and in less than a 12-month after the palace had reared its head, on the top of it proudly floated a banner of vulgar red, and General Booth was shouting and having a grand all night in our latest gigantic failure, the Palace of No Delight. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. A Charade by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Campbell Schelp. He wore 3 hats upon his head, and called aloud Old Clo'. It would not be correct to say his Christian name was Mo. His home was in a lane that used some time ago to bear the anglicized French name we give a garment ladies wear. You've seen him as the comic man in plays at Drury Lane, and Mr. Irving showed him once a prey to grief and pain. In all the tales our authors write, he's painted at his worst. I'll have a go at him myself, and here he stands my first. It was a young and noble earl, an impecunious sinner. He'd won a lovely Yankee girl, and gave a little dinner. The restaurant, a tip-top one, was in the town that airy, who once with Cooke the trip has done, insists on calling Perry. The bride-elect and all her friends the noble earl invited. They said he don't mind what he spends, and all were much delighted. But when the splendid spread was o'er, the guests about departing, the landlord came and locked the door, this piece of news imparting. His lordship's had me twice on toast, so now as you are going, I'd like to ask, exclaimed mine host, who'll pay me what is owing? Not one of you shall pass the door, the key is in my pocket, and not till someone's paid the score will this 'ere child unlock it. I've not enough, gasped out the earl, without his host he'd reckoned. The friends of that proud Yankee girl went shares and paid my second. I stood at eve as the sun went down by the side of a flowing river that runs through the east of London town, and I turned me away with a shiver. I have smelt some smells in thy streets, Cologne. I have seen some filthy fluids, but nothing like this has the wide world known since the days of the ancient Druids. Let the essence of all the stinks be stirred, and then you may fancy you smell my third. Where'er the flag of Britain floats proudly on the breeze, in this our home of freedom, and in lands beyond the seas, in India's wondrous cities, on wild Australian tracks, in vast Canadian forests, and among the conquered blacks, as far as sword and bayonet extend our freedom's goal. Next year, as per arrangement, they'll celebrate my whole. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A True Story by George R. Sims, read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. A Moral Poem for Children. The waves were high on Conway Bay, the wind it blew a gale. 5 visitors that very day had ventured on a sail. The tide ran high, the little boat unmanageable grew, and scarce could it be kept afloat by its unskilful crew. Some fisher folk upon the beach, all in the hurricane, put off that little boat to reach and bring it back again. And when the gale was at its height, those Conway boatmen brave went off It was a glorious sight, the drowning ones to save. They risked their lives, but fate was kind. They reached the boat at last. Its occupants, to death resigned, thought every hope was past. Their thanks to heaven they freely gave, and when they reached the beach, they to those Conway boatmen brave presented sixpence each. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Pirate Bus by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Betty B. It was a pirate omnibus that plied its evil trade along the London thoroughfares, and oh, the games it played! It ran a stout old lady down who wanted Temple Bar, and when they reached the Marble Arch, the cad cried, "Here you are! But ere you step ashore, old gal, your ransom you must pay." He charged a shilling, slammed the door, and then he sailed away. While driver and conductor yelled, "No use to make a fuss, we snap our fingers at the law, we are a pirate bus." The grand old man one autumn day was walking, axe in hand, along that busy thoroughfare, the gay and crowded Strand. He hailed a passing bus and said, "Are you a Hampstead, please?" At once they seized and flung him in, right on a lady's knees. They bore away the G.O.M. and set him down at Bow, and when he said, "The Vale of Health, that's where I want to go," the bus conductor said, "Get out, you are a queer old cuss, I'll trouble you for 4 and 6, this here's a pirate bus." A colored bishop, just arrived in town from Timbuktu, who wanted Shoreditch Church, they took and left him at the Zoo. He walked about and round the wilds of Regent's Park, and in the inner circle strayed, and lost himself at dark. In vain he looked for Shoreditch Church, he wandered round and round, until from rage and giddiness he tumbled on the ground, and when he heard the lions roar he funked, was taken wuss, and lost his wits, and now he's mad, all through that pirate bus. Young Mr. Lawson heard the tale, and went about the town, and found fresh victims here and there, all scattered up and down. He found a gray-haired gentleman who left his home at Bow, as near as he could recollect, a dozen years ago, but who, through pirates on the road, had travelled here and there, and paid his income all away to meet the pirate fare, but could not get to Bow again. Said Lawson, "Is it thus? That I'll away to Parliament and board the pirate bus." No more above the driver's seat the black flag sweeps the seas, no more the skull and bones across flaunts out upon the breeze. The buccaneering bus is bust, conductor kid is done, Paul Jones the driver's game is up, his pirate race is run, and o'er the parlor fire at home the country folks today tell wondering babes of those old days when they were borne away to desert isle and lonely spot, and yielded watch and puss to pay the ransom and escape the roving pirate bus. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The War Cry by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Betty B. Oh, it's down with the German sausage, away with the German yeast, and never shall turkey rhubarb come after an English feast. Oh, it's death to the onion Spanish, and death to the Brussels sprout, and we'll scatter the Persian sherbet in the general foreign rout. Let plaster of Paris vanish, and down with the old Dutch clock. No ship of old England's commerce shall strike on French almond rock. A fig for the choice Havana, and down with the black Japan. And never a Turkish towel shall dry a true Englishman. No more shall the Roman candle at the Palace of Crystal rise, and the famed Italian iron shall the laundry maid despise. No more shall the Russian leather envelop an English book. No more shall a French bean simmer 'neath the eyes of an English cook. 'Tis the cry of the bankrupt trader that floats upon every breeze. French rolls they have bust the baker, and the cheesemonger hates Dutch cheese. Oh, buy but the goods of Britain, by the hands of the natives made, and if they should charge you double, all the better for English trade. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Lancet by George R. Sims. I knew some jolly people, all as happy as could be, always eager for their dinner, always ready for their tea. Cheeks had they forever rosy, eyes that glistened and were bright. They could eat a hearty supper and sleep calmly through the night. They had neither pain nor aching, and as none of them were ill, they had never taken physic, and they paid no doctor's bill. Oh, in all the British Islands none were healthier, I ween, or were more happy and contented than the Browns of Walham Green. But one day, inside a carriage on the smoky underground, coming homeward from the city, Pa a bulky journal found. 'Twas a Lancet that some reader had forgotten and had left. So Pa put it in his pocket, which of course was not a theft. If it was upon the railway, I've committed many crimes, for I've often in this manner seized and taken home the Times. Oh, better, far better, had that Lancet never been on the seat in the compartment where sat Brown of Walham Green. Mr. Brown, he glanced it over while partaking of his tea. "Did you ever? Well, I never!" "Every moment," muttered he, as he left his tea untasted, and he put his muffin down. And his manner altogether was so queer that Mrs. Brown rose and screamed, "Good gracious, Thomas! What's the matter? Tell me true." "You are going white and yellow, and your lips are turning blue." And for answer out he read them all, the awful things he'd seen in the Lancet, and a panic seized the Browns of Walham Green. For they knew the germs of fever were around them everywhere. They were told how very fatal was the family armchair. They were told that every morning when the slavey shook the mat, germs of death were scattered broadcast, and they shivered as they sat. They were told that death was lurking in the teapot and the tank, in the milk and in the water, and in everything they drank. In their terror against each other all the family did lean. Peace of mind had gone forever from the Browns of Walham Green. From that day on they took the Lancet. Every week they read it through, and their faces changed from rosy to sickly yellow hue. And they could not eat their dinner, and they could not sleep at night, for with every Friday's Lancet came a new and awful fright. Germs of all the fell diseases that lie lurking for mankind were, according to the Lancet, blown on every passing wind. "How on earth from all these dangers can our carcasses we screen?" cried in throes of hourly anguish all the Browns of Walham Green. They were happy when they knew not of the germs that lie in wait in the cottage of the lowly, in the castles of the great, in the street and in the parlour, in the train and in the bus. Round the corner germs are waiting, on watch to spring on us. There are germs in clothes and customs. Ah, the Lancet's eye is keen. It has even pierced the dustbin of the Browns of Walham Green. There it told them germs in thousands lay in waiting night and day. So they went and threw carbolic in a wildly lavish way. Then it warned them in a leader that they'd better all look out for a dreadful epidemic that came down the waterspout. Up they went upon the housetop and poured quarts of condy down, which they carried up in buckets. Mr., Miss, and Mrs. Brown and the neighbors stood and wondered what the dickens it could mean at the gathering on the housetop of the Browns of Walham Green. Every week came other terrors. Every week their fears grew worse, till they felt their lives a burthen, till they felt their home a curse. And they sat around the table with a look of nervous dread, so upset by fears of dying that they wished they were dead. And when they were all turning to mere bags of skin and bone, and all the sound they uttered was a deep sepulchral groan, up rose young Tom, the eldest, a youth of 17, and seized and flung the Lancet right out on Walham Green. "Get out, you horrid bogey, you terrifying pest!" exclaimed young Tom in anger, as he flung it east and west. Then Pa rose up, and lifting his hand to heaven's dome, swore that never more the Lancet should come into the home. And from that hour there vanished their look of care and woe, and all of them grew happy as in the long ago. At germs they snapped their fingers, and now with joyous mien they live in calm contentment, the Browns of Walham Green. Moral. There is ignorance in comfort, there is folly to be wise. In mercy lies the future concealed from mortal eyes. The thousand hidden dangers for man that lie in wait, if known, would lead him surely to share the madman's fate. Life were not worth the living were we to dread the germs the Lancet serves up weekly in scientific terms. So snap your fingers at them, the germs of course I mean, and take to heart the story of the Browns of Walham Green. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Tale of a Tub by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Betty B. It was the wife of Mr. G, the Irish grand old man. A little ditty caroled she, and thus the ditty ran. I hear him in his dressing room, my Willie dear, my hub. He little heeds his coming doom, he warbles in his tub. When he is sad, I hear no sound except the water's splash. A solemn silence reigns around when thoughts my Willie fash. But now the joyous sound of song accompanies each rub. Things can't have gone so very wrong, he warbles in his tub. Although the country's cut him dead and given him the sack, he warbles while he wets his head and while he scrubs his back. I'm sure my Willie sees his way the Tory gang to drub, and that is why he's blithe and gay and warbles in his tub. He does not care for Telegraph or Morning Post or Times. He reads therein with many a laugh the record of his crimes. He knows his fingers he can snap at all ye street of grub. They haven't riled the dear old chap, he warbles in his tub. There's hope, he thinks, for Ireland yet, the old hand isn't done. With masses against classes set, there's sure to be some fun. He'll hold his own in spite of groan, and jest and jeer and snub, and that is why, with spirits high, he warbles in his tub. Moral: O Erin, yet shall burst for thee the sunshine through the gloom. Take heart from all this melody in Gladstone's dressing room. Plank down your dollars, Yankee boys, and tell each doubting sub, no fear the grand one's faith alloys, he warbles in his tub. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Comic King by George R. Sims. Read for LibriVox.org by Betty B. I'm going to sing you a simple song to show that a king can do no wrong. A lay that is laden in every line with the grand old creed of the right divine. The merriest monarch of modern times is the romping Rex of these rambling rhymes. The beamishest boy of the bold bad batch, the crack-crowned Kaiser of Colney Hatch. For many a year he played his pranks. He borrowed the balance of all the banks to build him a palace in every town, and when they were up, he pulled them down. He sat on the throne on days of state with a coffee pot jammed on his regal pate, and he showed his court he could kiss his toes while he balanced his scepter upon his nose. He danced a jig in the House of Peers and offered to toss the lot for beers, and whenever a cabinet council sat, he would make dirt pies in the premier's hat. When the neighboring monarchs came to call, he would butter the steps and the marble hall, and when his visitors broke their legs, he'd sit and he'd pelt them with hard-boiled eggs. He dressed his army in drawers and frocks, and little pink shoes and short white socks, and whenever he had a grand review, he rode on a donkey painted blue. His coachman signed all the royal decrees, and he joined his footmen in nightly sprees. He addressed his cook as "my dear old chap," and in church he sat in his housemaid's lap. And now that I've finished my simple song, if you say, "What whoppers," you'll just be wrong, as this isn't a lunatic laureate's lay, for the king was the King of Bavaria. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. End of Dagonet Ditties by George R. Sims.